Hi everybody. How you doing? Happy Friday. Alan, you don't look a day over 100.
And lo, they did make it to the end of the week, tired and worn by the weight and burden of life. I'm going to do this a lot tonight, probably. So
Not whiny
just
enough.
get ready for it, folks.
Not whiny enough. You gotta really sell it.
Warming up. You got to give me a few shots of this. It's not easy to nail it down. It's an art form, you might say.
And welcome everybody. Our 100th episode of Heavy Metallurgy that we've been documenting. There's a few episodes where I don't think we counted, unless Alan's the one that's the brains of the operation.
Nope. We've only skipped about 2 or 3 weeks out of the 2 years that we've been going. So Yep, we've been counting. Next week technically is the 2-year anniversary, and that'll be 101 out of a possible one. So we have brought the entertainment for sure on a pretty regular basis, and glad folks are enjoying it, and hopefully folks will enjoy it tonight. So Chris is already ready for it. That's great to see.
Yeah, and
hello, Melanie.
It would have been really nice to have those Riddick shirts done for today or next week, but it's probably not happening. I'm super busy. It's coming. I keep promising. I've had people messaging me behind the scenes. It's coming. They're going to be cool. So just get ready. Save your coin. And there's going to be hoodies and white shirts and black shirts. It's going to be good. But
this is the season where bands have lots of shirt orders as they're gearing up for touring here in the summer. So Marty is an in-demand fellow these days, and some projects just have to wait a little longer than we would like, but they will get taken care of in good time.
Yep, they're coming. Other stuff real quick. We have an Instagram, Heavy Metallurgy channel. Check it out. We're on Twitch, Heavy Metallurgy channel. Check it out if Twitch is your streaming medium of choice. I still don't get it. I've been trying. Don't get it. But for those of you that do, we're there for you. Also, super thanks, super chats, always available if anybody wants to shed some love our way. We appreciate it. It's going to a good cause. Yeah, that's it. Is there anything you want to add before we bring on our esteemed guest?
And so they shall be joined by another in the dark hours to reflect quietly. I'm going to do it all night. It's pretty easy. I can get this on autopilot. Just got to get a little bit more of that kind of British nasally kind of.
It's just
I haven't quite got the resignation to my lost and dreary fate just yet. Hey, I'm getting closer though. That had the romantic vibe going.
I spilled red wine on my favorite Ren Fair white shirt.
And so it was stained forever. It's going to be a long night, folks.
It's going to be a long night, everybody. We may not even bring Tom on. We're just going to do this already, and then after 3 hours, say, oh, thank you, good night.
After this, Tom may not want to come on.
But anyways,
let's try to get him out here.
Yeah, speaking of, we're bringing on Tom from Cine Arcadia Productions. Tom, welcome back, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. 100th episode. And My Dying Bride
is of the darkness.
Oh, you're going for like the early My Dying Bride. Okay.
Good voice.
Tom will take care of the the heavy vocals, and I'll take care of the sad my kitten has cancer vocals.
Your Ren Fair kitten.
That is technically a sub genre of the British gothic doom death romantic metal scene. Little known fact.
Sick Kitten? Is that a genre? Sick Kitten?
Sick Kitten, romantic gothic doom metal.
Okay, cool. Man, that's
not to be confused with Kicked Puppy, which is more like a kind of, it sounds the same, but it's got more of like a kind of derisive grindcore vibe going on there.
Yeah, it's too aggro for me, the Kicked Puppy.
Yeah, that's too dark, man. Too dark. I can't go there.
Uh-oh. We've already instigated revolt down in Florida. Everybody watch out.
Uh-oh.
But Tom, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to see you. How are things over on the channel?
Good. Yesterday
contest.
I posted a video about I'm doing a giveaway contest. I'm giving away 5 CDs, including My Dying Bride. I wanted to do this a while ago, but I thought this was a good time to actually do it. So
nice.
If you go to my channel, you can check out the details.
Well, we all know how that album's going to rank in Tom's category. Not very high because he's giving it away.
Copy.
Oh, okay.
The new Mournful Congregation is one of them.
Oh, very cool.
That Solar Lovers album is a overlooked classic. I love that record.
Yeah,
I love it.
definitely. Dutch goth psychedelic death doom, I guess.
Yeah, very unique sound. Very cool. Yeah, and if folks aren't familiar with Tom's channel, there is a link to it in the comments section already, so you can hop right over there to enter contests and check out a lot of his cool content.
Please do. I mean, Tom, we don't talk enough. We talk a little bit, but not enough. And I love your channel. I love your dry wit, your humor. You bring a lot to the table, and it's great. And it's so great to have you on again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. That's lovely.
You're very welcome. Okay. Why did you pick My Dying Bride? Let's get into the band. And before we get going too far, I'll regurgitate a little bit of Wikipedia inaccuracies probably, but we'll try. Want me to do that first? I can do that first. Let's do that first. My Dying Bride was formed in Bradford, West Yorkshire, England in June 1990. I'm going to do the Cliff Notes version. Since their inception, they have released 14 studio albums. I don't know if this number's right. 3 EPs, 1 demo, 1 box set, 4 compilation albums, 1 live album, and 1 live CD/DVD release. I think there's actually been a few more EPs since this was taken note. I mean, the band has toured the world, and let's be honest, a band of this caliber, the doom, sad bastard doom, draped in, romanticism. I find it kind of amazing that they've lasted this long and have had such a long, prolific career. And maybe it's just me. Maybe this strikes me as more of a European thing, but kudos to them. And why did you decide that My Dying Bride was the one for this episode?
Well, they're part of the Peaceville Three, and I do like them a lot more than the other two. And generally, on YouTube anyways, I only hear people talking about the first 3 albums. And I think there's a lot of really good, I would say like half their albums to me are really good. Yeah, so that sounds more correct what Falafel is saying.
Yeah.
And also just one of my 2 favorite doom bands, along with Solitude Aeternus, fittingly, which is the last episode I was on. So to me, they're, in terms of the goth doom, they're to me a cut above, and also just originators of the style. And generally, like I had a period where I was into a lot of doom and stoner doom stuff. And I do find some of that stuff can get repetitive. And one of the great things I love about this band is just kind of the variety and the to me, there's a bit of a prog influence, and also just like unique song structures, dynamics. Like there's a lot of songs where if you hear it for the first time, you really don't know what's going to happen. Unlike there's a lot of like doom metal bands that are just, let's rip off Sabbath. And usually they're not doing that,
Right.
No, all very good points. Yeah, we've talked on some recent episodes here and there about how doom metal was not very popular in a lot of places in the 1980s, but My Dying Bride and their colleagues really helped change that at the beginning of the 90s, where it became a much more recognized and widespread popular genre, like you mentioned with the Peaceville Three. And yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Tom. I think they are the best of the 3. They're definitely the one that kind of stayed closest to home in terms of style over time. They've moved around within that space they occupy, like you just said. There is more variation than you think there is just at first glance of their catalog. But yeah, they didn't ever wander as far afield as Anathema or Paradise Lost did.
Yeah, I want to say Rick is exempt from that statement earlier. We talked about that in the pre-show.
Yes, Rick covers all things.
Not including Rick and a few other channels, but a lot of people they know the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
Or the first half of the 90s. And
Yeah, they're a good example of one of those bands, that did some really classic albums right out of the gate, and then those albums, they can't ever seem to get out of their shadow, no matter how long they stick around or how many other quality albums they make. Everyone just keeps talking about the same, first two or three things. It's a weird phenomenon that you see with some bands, that they just never they never can escape that early work. Why do you think that is? Why do folks just keep gravitating back to the same couple of albums when there's so many other really good ones to check out?
Well, I mean, at least because when I was following them at the time, and we'll kind of get into this later, but to me, the 34.788% album was just a giant disappointment. And then
spoiler alert.
And I was like, and they were like one of my favorite bands at that point, and I got that when it came out, and I hated it, and we'll get into that later. And then their next album, Light at the End of the World, I actually had to get as an import. I think it took a year before it actually came out in the US, so I got the UK import first.
Yeah, it was really delayed. You're right.
So, at least in my head at the time, I was like, either with the record company or something, or with that particular album, like a lot of fans may have dropped off, or their in terms of their record company push, whatever label. I guess they've been on Peaceville, but maybe their record company push wasn't as strong.
Yeah.
And then maybe a lot of people dropped off around that point, or they just hated Angel in the Dark River and they dropped off. So there were a couple points in the 90s where I think a lot of people, dropped off for various reasons. Like they didn't find the new album in the store, or they just hated one of them.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like Gods of the Sun was kind of controversial when it came out with a lot of folks. So yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. Some of those albums probably did cost them some fans along the way. And then, I'd forgotten how hard it was to find Light at the End of the World when it came out.
There's a long line of, I'm looking, the first, I paid a lot of money for this stuff, dude. It's crazy. None of this shit was domestic that I can remember. That's one of the reasons why I was so mad at Angel in the Dark River. Well, I loved this band, and I paid almost $30 for the damn CD, and it sucked.
The only import I had to buy was Light at the End of the World, but I worked at Tower Records, and we had it in the store as an import, and I got it 40% off.
Oh, well, good.
Nice.
So I didn't pay more than probably $15 for it.
Yeah, that's right. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. There's stuff. I'm trying to remember. Light at the End of the World, I think I had to get as import too. I don't think I had to get any of the others as import, but they were hard to get. We basically had to go to like one particular store in Akron, Ohio. Was the only place in like northern Ohio that ever had their stuff on the shelf.
But to circle back around to your question, why would a band like this still be have such a popularity? That was the kind of the question, wasn't it? I was reading chat at the time.
Why they have stayed very popular. Maybe not as much as they were once upon a time, but they still have a good following. So go ahead,
having not, I mean, I haven't listened to this band in a while, and there was a few holes in the collection. So going back into it, I was quite impressed and surprised at how consistent the band has been, other than a few, turds, but it not only is there a formula they follow, it's a very advanced formula. And the songwriters of this band, they pull from a very brilliant tapestry of influences and ideas. The music is very advanced for something typically so slow and brooding and sad. There's a lot of interesting things going on. It isn't just, your typical teenagers trying to be slow and heavy. There's a lot of great ideas here. And, there's a formula, but like I said, they work at such a higher elevation in that formula. Just, if you like the sound, if you can get past the vocals, every album, there's a wealth of, high-end stuff to process, and I was quite surprised. It was kind of an eye-opening experience, because I'm a guy that found this band early. Did I hear, like Mark, did I hear their demo? No, not until I started Soul Seek, journey, downloading files. But no, the kick probably dies after this week. Trust me. That's how these things go. The homework typically kills my mood for the band afterwards for a long time.
You can either be the My Dying Bride guy or the Halloween guy.
Yeah. The Halloween marathon happens all the time. Yeah. There's no both. There's no both at the same time.
Yeah.
But what the hell was I saying? Shit, I don't remember. Anyway, yeah, My Dying Bride, good stuff. Oh, I started off with this band early. The first EP was the first thing I heard from them, and I was just so utterly blown away by how brutal and heavy it was. Yet, the orchestration worked in. It was so unique at the time. There was just not bands like that, and Aaron's vocals, his death vocals, second to none. I love his tone. He's not really good in that register, coming up with super inventive vocal placement, like putting the lyrics over he tends to follow the riffs a lot, which typically bugs me, but his voice is so brutal and good. I forget about it. And I mean, they just had so much to offer on the EP and the first full length. And even Turn Loose the Swans. I mean, we're going to get into all that, but, yeah, I kind of went off the tracks here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I think that they've survived all these years because even though they're working in a subgenre that may not be universally loved. Another weird thought I had listening to them this week. You know who they remind me of from their country? They remind me of Cradle of Filth. And I'm not meaning the sound. I'm meaning the way they're, real poetic. Cradle of Filth might be a little more vampiricism, tongue-in-cheek, hot topic, black metal, but they're both very symphonic in a way, and I don't know, that you could tell they're from the same country. Even though they're not playing the same style, they kind of seem like a companion band. It's very strange. They just have a very similar feel and flow and aesthetic to me, even though their sound is different. I don't know.
It read some of the same dark poetry.
Yeah, they read
Cradle of Filth being more cheeseball, but there is, I see like that distinctly British kind of dark poet thing.
Yeah.
And lo, Marty did wander far astray from where the thread began and became lost amongst the twilight.
Hopelessly lost. Hopelessly lost. Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying there. Yeah, both bands tend to focus on dying brides. It's just that one band bit them in the neck and the other band just cried a lot. So
one band is like, this bride is dying and it's awesome because I'm a vampire, and then the other one's like, this sucks.
My bride's coming back to life, and
I can see like two sides of the same coin.
Yep. My bride's boobs are bloody, and on the inside of my album cover, where are yours?
Usually hidden behind some very obscure cover
sackcloth
or less.
Yes.
But that was a band I was big into, in that time, the mid 90s, that I kind of grew out of later.
Yeah.
So I was, listening to My Dying Bride and Cradle of Filth probably back to back,
Sure.
In 95, 96, 97.
I'm sure. Yep. Same here. Absolutely.
There's a guy right here who's too chicken to be on the show. He couldn't hang with the heavyweights, he said.
Hey, TJ. I know TJ.
What's up, TJ?
Band, so glad you could join us, TJ.
Yeah, it's one of his favorite bands.
So, I'm finding out that people are not into the Aventa, which doesn't surprise me, but we'll get into that.
We will get to that one, and we'll see where the chips will fall.
Well, what are we doing here tonight? Setting it up. We're going to go through their whole collection. Well, the full links. I mean, we're going to have side shoots and show other stuff as well. I did not prepare by listening to all the EPs. I just listened to the full links. But we're each going to go through and talk about each album, chronological order, and we're going to rank them one at a time as we go. And just talk about My Dying Bride and whatever else comes up. And we're probably going to start with you, Tom. You're the guest. You can go first.
All right. So I have a list of all the, demos and EPs and stuff I have. So I'll just quickly go in chronological order. The demo, this is the LP reissue a few years ago.
I didn't know they did that.
Demo. The crucial thing, I originally heard this just like, the crappy rip from a worn out tape, from the internet years ago. And then they did these tracks on various compilations. And then they did this reissue, and they all sound totally different from one another. So this whatever this remaster, maybe it's on CD, like it sounds super, super bassy and heavy, like it sounds awesome. So if you've not heard this demo, or maybe you heard like inferior quality versions, I would definitely check it out. If you're, even if you're just into death metal, like it's awesome.
It's good
in terms of the sound quality. And oddly, I wonder if anyone knows, but they didn't have a bass player. They just had 2 guitar players. So it sounds like one the guitarist, or at least for certain songs and parts, they just detune the guitar way, way, way down. So it just like rumbles through. But on the previous versions, you never heard that. Like they filtered out the bass or something, or remixed it. I don't know, but I would definitely check out the demo and that whatever that recent remaster was.
Cool. Well, you want to keep going up to and start with the first full length, show the next EP, and talk about that for a second, and then
I'll just they had an EP and a single, Symphonaire Infernus et Spera Imperium, and then the God is Alone single, and I think both are really great. I just have this CD, which is a collection that has there's 2 on it. And that they released those before their first full length. And I especially like the song God is Alone is like my favorite super heavy song that they ever did. It's like just like a death metal song. This song is awesome. Great. And Symphonaire Infernus is great. So they have a lot of really great EPs, but those 3 releases, I would definitely, especially if you're into the first record, I would definitely make sure to check those out. And then we're on to trying to keep these organized. The first album, and this is the second time I bought it because I scratched it, of course, which I talked about earlier. This is 1992, As the Flower Withers, Death Doom classic. And interestingly, I didn't know until prepping for this video, but the last song, Erotic Literature, is actually a bonus track. And that was always my least favorite song. I didn't like how it ended the album, but it's technically a bonus track. So
it wasn't on the LP then, is what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah. And I never knew that. So basically there's an intro and there's basically 5 songs. I mean, it's a classic, and I think the songs are really good. My problem with this album has always been the production, especially the drums.
Really clunky, thumpy drums. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's like it would have been better if it just sounded raw, like the earlier stuff. But it sounds polished in like a bad way. Like they tried to get a polished sound, and like the drums are really thin and close mic'd. And to me, like the album after this sounds fantastic. But that's to me, that's the big problem with this album it sounds thin, and that drum sound is really bad to me. But the song Return of the Beautiful is, I think, one of their best songs, the last song. And then they re-recorded that later. And then The Forever People is a really good death metal song.
Love that song.
And then Sear Me is probably my second favorite song in this album. So it's solid from beginning to end. And Sear Me, they kind of readapted 2 more times, and we'll talk about those as we go on. And I have it ranked as my number 7 album out of the 14. And it's really because of the production. But basically, I have like tiers. So like 4 through 7, I basically have even, but I just put this at 7. So I think they have like the 3 top albums and then 4 after that are all really great. So
number 7 for Tom on the debut. Alan, what do you think about As the Flower Withers?
Let's see. Yeah, just kind of the same lead up. My introduction to the band, was this collection, the Trinity, that had some of those different EPs and other tracks included. So it's at early stage in the band's history. Liked it quite a bit. It was a band, me and some friends, girlfriend, we had been hearing about the name. Took us a while to track something down, but we ended up in it was called Quonset Hut. It was a indie merch store in Akron, Ohio, and they always had good metal and punk hardcore CD section. So they had this, picked it up, and I spent a lot of time with it because like we've been saying, the tracks have a lot of interesting stuff going on. Like TJ pointed out in the comments, there's a lot of really good tracks on these. But it was a while before I was backed up and tracked down a copy of As the Flower Withers. So I kind of got this and then Turn Loose the Swans a little while after it came out and then worked forward with the band. But eventually, backed up to As the Flower Withers, which I don't have a physical copy of. It's a good album. It, of course, focuses more, on the really heavy vocals, which Aaron is really, really good at. It introduces, the violin with Martin, which, of course, is a staple part of their sound early on. I agree with Tom. Return to Beautiful is the best song for me. One of the best in their early years for sure. While it's a good album, it's not one I go back to very often. In replaying it this week, it's like, that's good, but it's a little bit of an outlier compared to everything else they did. They kind of moved away from this style of focusing on what would come to be known as death doom, and took it in more different directions. And then at this point, 30 some years later, when I'm in the mood for something like this just isn't the album I go to. I'll pick something else, a different band that does this kind of style. I saw one quote, going through some of the Metal Archive reviews that I thought was, really apt for this one, that, it's a very good album. It's a very, very influential album, but relative to the rest of My Dying Bride's catalog, it's not necessarily one of their best. And so, my ranking, like Tom's, is, kind of, in the middle down a little bit. I've got it ranked 9th. And again, that may seem low, but it's still a good album. And it just speaks to the fact that I think they've got a lot of better albums to come after this point in their career. So, good album, but not one I would ever dust off very often these days to play.
And I will say, like, the EP after Thrash and Naked Limbs and then the stuff I mentioned previous to this, I kind of like that material better.
I do too. Yeah. I know the Trinity collection I pull out, and yes, this still gets played from time to time pretty regularly, whereas As the Flower Withers does not. Yep. But
would you say you thought this was your 7th?
I've got it ranked in 9th.
9th.
I have it 7.
Tom has it 7 and I have it 9. And so now it's time to we shall pass the torch to another and see where it may stand eternally. Go, take it away, Marty.
Man, I can't tell you how many times I've spun this record. This was a big deal for me in 92. Big deal. And it remains a big deal to me to this day. I will agree. The drums, especially the kick drums, sound like beaters hitting wet pizza boxes. It's bad. It's really, really bad. And, but I love the interplay of those dark melodies with the violin. The violin just really piles on the sorrow on this stuff. And again, it's another English kind of staple. You look at Skyclad, another big band for the UK. The fiddle was a big part of their sound too.
You even see it with some newer bands, like Dawn Raid does some of that too, in their music.
Yeah, absolutely. This album for me was, yes, the band got better as they went on. They matured. Their music really unfolded and offered a lot of different avenues of exploration, experimentation. This is kind of in the deathier, the Forever People, obviously more of an upbeat track. It's just very crushing, heavy, killer riffs. Sounds very English in a good way. And I love this record and I continue to go back to it. This is my number one. And yes, nostalgia is part of it. It really plays heavily on it with me. And this band in particular, this is where I wish the band, here we go. The next album, really, the writing was on the wall for me. This I worshipped. Aaron's vocals, I think, are some of the best. I love the tone in his voice. He's just so brutal and guttural, and so much moisture flopping around in there. It just makes his stuff sound so agonized, and it fits this music well. It really, he's letting the music be the melody, and the music is heavily melodic, very mournful. The music itself paints a very vibrant picture. The vocals don't need to do what they ended up doing, but we're going to get to that. This is my number one. I don't even feel bad about it. If we were ranking the EPs, the EP might have been my number one, to be honest, and this would have been my number two. But these are great, and also, we mentioned this Thrash Naked Limbs. Paid a pretty penny for this when it came out.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. It's 2 songs, and then it has the little instrumental thing in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah, if you haven't heard that, I highly recommend it.
And it looks like a Fields of the Nephilim cover. The whole English thing. Yep. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. With some bands, it's kind of easy to overlook these, early EPs and things that only have 1 or 2 or 3 tracks on them. But in this case, yeah, it's some of the band's best material. They really are worth checking out if anybody has not done so.
Yeah, a lot of cases, it's like a dumping ground for crap.
Yeah, or it's just something you have to, hey, let's make sure we get another release out quickly to kind of keep our name out there, or we have a couple of leftover tracks. But no, the stuff on a lot of those are really amazing.
And this comment here too from Darren, Flowers Gets Into Your Soul. It was so unique, and that's exactly it. The EP in that first full length, there was nothing really that. Yeah, there was Paradise Lost. Gothic was a very similar kind of creature. Anathema was doing, but My Dying Bride, they just did it so good, and the uniqueness of it in 1992 was. I'm always going to cling to it, and that's why it's my number one. Like I said, it's totally heavy-handed dose of nostalgia there for me, but way it goes.
And I will say, you said not being able to find these, at least the original. This is the remaster or whatever, but the original version I got, I bought at Borders. I remember.
Really?
Wow. So a lot of these. Cool. I didn't have that problem in the 90s. I just went to a store and bought the new My Dying Bride or whatever one I wanted.
Well, we live in northern Michigan. There wasn't that option. If Camelot didn't have it, you had to go south.
I was in Chicago's, and that was
big city.
Probably one of the best record store towns in the 90s, or it's now.
Yep. Well, that brings us to 1993.
Yeah, Turn Loose the Swan. So this is my. Was it 93?
That's what Metal Archive said.
Yeah. Turn Loose the Swans. This is my introduction. And so I think I got this in 94. There was this web page that was just metal reviews that it was just text, blocks of text. And I don't remember the name of it, but there were a lot of things that this guy he raved on that I went out and bought, and this was early internet, so there are a lot of influential things that he recommended, whoever his name was, I don't remember, but and this is one of them that he raved on, and then I think I saw a review of it in some magazine, I can't remember which one, and I went out and bought it. And this is very different from the previous album. I don't know where to start. So basically there's the sort of goth classical intro, and then an outro. Sear Me and Black God are the other 2 songs, and then there's 5 regular songs in between. And I'll just say this is one of my favorite metal albums of all time. My number one, no question. To me, I mean, this is even now, this album is unique in the sense of how well it's, because he has the death metal element of how this album kind of transitions and sort of is kind of a roller coaster in a sense of song structures. To me, it's really unique. A good example would be Your River, which is almost 10 minutes long, I think. And the song begins, it's sort of an instrumental prelude. It's like little bits of all the sections that you're going to get in the song when it actually kicks in is how it starts, like the first third. And then you have the main part of the song. And then it turns into like a death metal song to where it fits in kind of the story of the song, where the main character who's speaking gets really angry. It's sort of like a mournful, sad bastard thing. And then in the last bit is when he gets angry and it gets death metal. So it's like a totally unique song structure. And the death metal part is kind of used dramatically. What is
little known fact from Rick there.
Shit, that wasn't in Wikipedia. Great, thanks, Rick.
Unleash the swans.
And that's one example. And also with that same song, this album is, in terms of vocalists that do the clean and the death metal vocals, this is, to me, is the best example. Opeth has some albums and songs where it does it really well. In terms of like, it almost like makes sense, like he's a character that's singing and sad, and then he gets angry and does the death metal and then reverts back. Like it makes sense within the song. It's not just, going back and forth because that you're that type of vocalist. I think My Dying Bride does that better than anybody. Opeth has certain songs and albums that it works pretty well. And I think it's a perfect album. The other thing is just some of the riffs are really sort of elongated and long, in just a really cool way, like the ending of Crown of Sympathy, the beginning of Turn Loose the Swans. These I call them like snaky riffs, and like that opening, that super heavy opening riff of Turn Loose the Swans is great. And then also just kind of the production is fantastic, and then just the spareness of the album. And especially the song Crown of Sympathy. My two favorite songs on here are Crown of Sympathy and Your River. Like because there's that 90s thing of, goth metal, let's add as many keyboard layers as we can. And Crown of Sympathy, it's like the keyboard layer that they're using is silence. I hit the mic, if that makes sense. Like it's almost part of the atmosphere was when the spareness and the silence of that song. And it's one of my very, very favorite My Dying Bride songs. And I think I've said enough, but so it's definitely my number one, no question.
Right on. Okay. Alan.
And thus there were no words left to be said after the silence lingered following his poetry.
Better watch out tonight, Mel. He's getting all romantic.
Yeah, very well said. Tom is absolutely spot on with the description of this album. It's a transition album, and a lot of times transition albums, feel very odd. In hindsight, you look back and say like, well, yeah, it was using a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but we tend to gravitate to either the before or the after. But with My Dying Bride, this is, the album that probably, gets talked about, the most. It's the transition album that everybody actually gravitates towards in this case. It's, got, such, a graceful back and forth between the, death vocals, and the new cleaner vocals. Like TJ was saying, they use it, as this almost point and counterpoint device. And it feels very natural. I agree with Tom. Opeth does it well sometimes, but sometimes with Opeth, for me at least, it always felt a little too jarring, or forced gives the wrong connotation, but it just didn't
I would say
feel as natural.
certain songs. I can't remember the name of the song I was thinking of. Yeah, certain songs I think he does that really well.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And he does both styles well, but it never has quite the same flow to it that, My Dying Bride gets on an album like this. This was my second chance hearing the band. I'd had the Trinity collection for a while, and I don't know exactly how much time went by before I was able to get this. I think pretty sure I had to go back to that, same store in Akron and get it again. And that was not a place, it was a few hours drive from where we were at. So it was the kind of place we got to maybe once a semester if we had, a weekend with nothing going on. Be like, oh, okay, haven't been over there in a few months. Let's go check it out. But yeah,
to lay it in, I think I got this at Best Buy. There was actually like the Best Buy near me actually had like they didn't have a big metal selection, but it actually had a really cool, like you could get like Relapse stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got this at a Best Buy.
Yeah, the Best Buys around us actually had a really good metal section back then too, and I got a lot of neat and weird stuff. I don't remember getting My Dying Bride at Best Buy though. I know I got stuff like the first Therion album, even. Lots of crazy stuff. Warlord, Best of. They carried a lot of stuff, but yeah, My Dying Bride was just didn't quite ever seem to make the cut at most places. Regardless, though, it's my number one as well. It's easily the album I've played the most, and even though I've owned it for almost 30 years, it's still the one I'll go back to probably the most often when I want to hear something like this. Folks, in the comments have been putting it very well. There's just at the time, nothing really sounded like this. And even today, you're hard pressed to find another album that really, gets the sound, so sublime as My Dying Bride did on this album. And while, that was, it was great. It was heralded a lot at the time, for those, who are younger and weren't around when it came out. This album, it got talked endlessly. It was still getting reviews and comments, in zines and stuff well after its release. People really did recognize that there was something really special about this album. And yes, something Marty may mention in a minute, there were folks, that were thrown by, the reduction of, the heavier vocals, that it does go in a different direction than As the Flower. And that did leave some people scratching their heads at first, but a lot of people really did embrace it. And, for me, it's still the album I go back to the most. In terms of tracks, would pick the same stuff Tom did. Crown of Sympathy has always been one of my absolute favorites by them. It's the gem on the album, but there's nothing bad on here. 3 decades later, I still have no problem sitting down, listening to it, and enjoying it all, pretty much start to finish. So number one for me.
And it flows very well. You could tell in terms of the beginning of the song and the end of the song, they put a lot of thought into how they flow into each other.
Yeah, they really did. And like you said, sometimes they feel like, they've got lots of these bits and pieces of things they're putting together, but it really just, it's very seamless. It doesn't feel, just mashed together. It's very, very well assembled. All right. So Marty, how many swans would you like to turn loose?
Well, when this thing came out, my initial reaction was I would like to have choked a couple of them. A younger me was not as forgiving or welcoming of the clean vocal style, and thankfully,
swans.
Yeah, thankfully, I stuck with it, and I end up loving this record. It really does work well. This week, I had to have a kind of a long kind of sit and ponder what it is about what kind of grudge I held against this band, because I did. Like I said, I really love the early stuff. I love it, and when he decided to go, turn loose the swans, the writing was on the wall with this record. I heard it. I ended up loving it. There was enough death vocals on there to keep me happy. I could understand where the clean vocals worked in well with the advancing songwriting that was going on, the development. There was a lot of evolution happening on this record. Mm-hmm. But why was I so angry that the vocals would change? Because I knew it was going to happen more, and as the next album proves, it did. But this week I kind of realized that I don't like his clean vocals. I don't. I think he got better at it as they went on. He must have took some vocal lessons at some point in their catalog, because the clean singing got improved. He got way better. The whiny bullshit, I know he's trying to be agonizing, tortured, all that stuff. I don't like it. They put it too loud in the mix. He's whiny. He sounds pathetic in a bad way. And to deny those great death pipes from happening, it pissed me off. I took it more. I was more offended that he would make this choice. But
Marty, you sound like you're ready to steal his lunch money.
I am. Yep.
Whiny bitch.
Whiny bitch.
Your puppy got cancer.
But I spent a lot of time with this record and I end up loving it. It's my number 2. And again, there's a nostalgia factor connected to it. I was 21 when this record came out, so I wasn't a teenager anymore. I was, making my own money and buying my own stuff, but still.
You had ascended into the realms of manhood.
Yes.
Free to explore life.
Lit a candle for my younger me.
And bear its weight.
Very well said. Very well said. Yep. It's a great record. I love it. I had to come to the realization this week that I just don't like his whiny vocals. I don't like it. It's like a sliver, or, a sliver trying to get out of the skin. It festers up, and I don't know. I don't like it. Anyway, Tom, we're going to 1995 next.
You got to work on your dark romantic, vocabulary there, dude. You're going more for the gore grind stuff, Marty.
Yeah.
Sliver festering and boils beneath it.
This came before that, I think. I Am the Bloody Earth, actually.
Yeah. So So I do like the song "I Am the Bloody Earth," and
great
the other
song.
2 are just kind of remix things that are kind of stupid to me.
Yeah, a little shake your ass type of dance stuff.
But the "I Am the Bloody Earth," the song, is really good.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Tom.
Okay, "Angel in the Dark River," 1995. So they pretty much dropped the death metal at this point.
There's no pretty much. It's gone. It's bye-bye.
Yeah. And this album did take me some time to get used to. I think it makes sense in terms of not having the death metal vocals, because it's just structurally quite a different album. Because like I was saying, the previous one, there's the sadness and the anger going extreme back and forth. This album, there's a lot of shifting, but it's sort of more of a flowing, subtle shifting. There's not, and it's, to me, this is more melodic, more prog, and generally, like I said, compared to "Turn Loose the Swans," it's sort of, the whole thing is flowing from beginning to end and then shifting as it goes along, if that makes sense, which is very different from "Turn Loose the Swans." So this album took me a while to kind of get the hang of, but I love it. I mean, it's sort of one of those things you kind of have to listen to from beginning to end, almost like it was a concept album, but I don't know that it is. And I was this morning, I was listening to one of the live albums, and they were playing "Cry of Mankind," and I was kind of thinking this reminds me of a Genesis, one of the piano riff, that long piano riff, which is fantastic. Kind of reminds me of a melody you would hear in Genesis or Renaissance, the 70s British prog band. So I think the 70s British prog influence, to me, I feel it on this. I haven't ever heard them talk about being influenced by prog, but I assume they are. And then my 2 favorite songs are "A Seed of Suffering" and "From Darkest Skies." Again, there's just some melody, repetitive melodies and riffs, that where the riff or melody is so great. they play it 20 times, and especially in From Darkest Skies, that one riff, they play it like 20 times, and each time I'm into it,
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of what threw me off when first listening to this, that it is kind of repetitive, but to me it's in a good way, and and this is my number 2.
Oh my God.
And
Yay.
yeah, but I will say, like, I've kind of, at least in the 90s, I went back and forth on this. Like,
sure.
I either like, this is too much of a change, or it's too repetitive. So it took a while to grow on me. So that's it. So my number 2.
Right on. I'm kidding. You can, that's fine. I'm just picking at you. Here we go. Yeah. Alan, is it your number 2?
No, it's not my number 2.
I would say it is number 2.
Yeah, Tom's got the version with the white cover. I've got it also came with a black cover. This is I think it's a digipack pressing. It's probably not the original.
Yeah, I want to say it was like this initially when it came out, and then when they started reissuing it, with the black cover. At least in the US.
Yeah. I also have, there's a 2 CD version with the black cover also. So yes, I've got 2 copies of it.
What's the second CD?
Let's see, disc 2 is just a few bonus tracks. It's got Your River, A Seed of Suffering, Your Shameful Heaven, and The Forever People. And I'm trying to see if it says where and when those were recorded, but it's in tiny print somewhere within it. The other one, now the digipack has bonus tracks, but it's a different set of bonus tracks. It's got Sexuality of Bereavement, Your River live at Dynamo, Seed of Suffering live at Dynamo, and The Forever People live at Dynamo. So yeah, different bonus tracks on the 2 different versions. Why do I have 2 different versions? Because I'm a sick little monkey. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in this case, my monkey is dying. My dying monkey. That is what we shall go with here. But yeah, the fact that I have 2 different versions of it should give away that I like the album quite a bit. It is very different sounding than Swans, and I also remember being a bit confused the first time I heard it. This one, when I first heard it, it was about the time it came out. My girlfriend at the time bought this album. It was another run to probably Quonset Hut once again. Maybe it was a Best Buy find, but regardless, this time around, it was sort of, I was buying other stuff, and she was really getting into the My Dying Bride albums we already had. So she's like, "Yeah, I want to pick that one up." So like, great, then you can listen to mine, and I'll listen to yours, and yes, all is good.
When you leave, you can take all of mine.
That's a story for another night.
Mine is yours to drown in.
But you have to give this back once you break up with me. But yeah, a little confusing at first because yes, all the heavier aggro parts are gone. What about Dolphin?
My dying dolphin. Sorry.
If they weren't endangered, I'd cheer that on, but someone might take that the wrong way. Anyway, it's like you said, Tom. Yeah, it's a repetitive album in a way. On first listen, it's very easy to think that this is just a very simple album, that they're not doing much, that it's really stripped down. But what they're doing works very well. Yeah, with that repetition, it has the same it has more of a trancey effect. That you can just really flow along with that all the way along Your Dark River and down the river in a big black intertube.
Dark.
Literally flows like a river.
It really, really does. But it works extremely well. I mean, they obviously knew what they were doing and thought about how to make it work, and they pulled it off really, really well. Let's see. Best tracks are hard to pick. I like a lot of the ones on here. Curse of Mankind, even though it's long and repetitive, I like that one a lot. Yeah. 2 Winters Only, that one is very sad. It really, even by this band's standards, it kind of turns the plaintive knob up to 11 and a half, 34.7%, somewhere in there. Your Shameful Heaven, of course, is great. So yeah, it's a really good album. It's one I enjoy still going back to from time to time. I don't have it number 2, but I got it at number 3. Angel in the Dark River still gets a lot of plays. Different direction, different style than what they did on the previous albums, but it works. And it kind of showed that the band was going to be successful, moving forward. Sometimes, bands on the first couple albums are jumping styles around and they kind of start to fizzle out. They can't ever pick a lane and they eventually they start doing things that don't work. Here, My Dying Bride is still, tinkering with their sound a bunch, and they're still kind of hitting it out of the park. So it bode well for their future once we got this album and realized, how brilliant it was. And now I want to pass it to a guy who I suspect disagrees.
I'm going to set up this comment here as I move myself into the main. Dropping the logo for basic font is always a bad sign. That is a telltale sign things are about to get shitty in this river.
I will say that like half their albums they don't use the logo.
It's true.
Or
the first,
EPs,
even the first one they don't.
And they thought in some interview they said they try their logo with whatever album cover, and if they decide it doesn't look right, they just use a font.
Yeah.
But Papyrus is a 15-yard penalty. That is not allowed.
Flag thrown. Exactly. Yeah.
But you can find something better than that.
Yes. The comment is true in a lot of cases, though. It is a fair observation for sure.
I haven't listened to this record since it came out, and I put it on this week, and I gotta say, The Cry of Mankind, it's a long, repetitive song, but it's a good song. When this album came out, I was done. I'm like, okay, this band is dead to me. I'm done. The whiny vocals rule on here. On The Cry of Mankind, he's singing a little lower. He, like TJ said, he's trying to go for more miserable. And we've been talking about My Dying Bride all week, and because they're a favorite of his, and I get it. He's trying to sound miserable and sad and mournful and forlorn and all the adjectives, but it's whiny. The Cry of Mankind, though, it's a 12-minute long epic. It's a good song. The rest of it's just boring. It's boring. I hate the vocals. I just can't. Even after all this time, this album, listening to it again this week, made me realize that it's Aaron. The thing I hate the most about My Dying Bride is the singer.
It's not me. It's you.
Yeah, exactly.
Marty, have you seen the Cry of Mankind music video?
Probably. I don't know.
Because there's like a dead bride that he's singing, and then she puts a crown of thorns on him and he turns into Jesus.
Oh,
so you would really hate that video.
Oh God, I'd hate
Classy.
it. Again, I love his death vocals, and his clean vocals got a lot better as they went on, but it's not there yet. This is, I get it. It's more leaning into the gothic sphere, which is fine. I love gothic music. I love the romanticism of it. I love I don't know. This is just a swing and a miss for me. A swing and a miss. And if it wasn't for a couple other albums that presented themselves as a little shittier, this would have been the last one. But it landed at number 12 for me.
Oh, that's fair. If it's not your cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea.
Not
I do like clean vocals. Obviously, I've been listening to tons of power metal and all sorts of clean singing. It's just his voice isn't good at this point in singing. It just isn't good. Yeah, people are start to revolt. Easy, Marty.
Thanks, Wade. Hope to see you again later.
Cheers, Wade. All right, Tom, you're bringing us into 1996.
Yeah, like Gods of the Sun. So to me, this seemed like it. I don't know if this is their most successful album, but it seemed like it had just a wider appeal, at least in my little region. Like my sister, who was into goth and not really into metal, had this album.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember seeing the music video. There's like a local Chicago music video channel. I remember seeing the music video for You on that channel, and I was surprised. And the way I kind of looked at it when this came out is that this was kind of like their sellout album, and I loved it anyways. I was like, well, I'm down with them shorter songs, but as time went on, I don't really think of it that way anymore. I just think it's probably more, this is their kind of more simple in terms of songs are shorter. They're not as slow and long, and I would say probably the lyrics are a bit more direct. And just because of that, I think it maybe appealed to some more people, especially just goth people. But there's a great Grace Unhearing is one of my favorite My Dying Bride songs. I think that's fantastic. And just like the opening riff, it's just such of Gods of the Sun, the title track is such a great doom metal riff. And overall, I think this is and then the For My Fallen Angel is like the sad boy goth classical outro, but I love it. I think it's awesome, and they're really good at doing like just a little 3-4 minute kind of classical interlude kind of thing. And
man, if you're writing a song and you want to call it A Kiss to Remember, you just really got to slam your dick in the door a couple times just to reset yourself. I would think, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say this is like, and it's also just a little more, it feels like a little more romantic, like she's not actually dying anymore, maybe. The bride.
Hey, we have a shot.
She's a little under the weather.
Like less depressing.
It's just a flesh wound.
But I think maybe some people do view this as like going after the typo negative crowd or something. But now I do not look at it this way. I think this album is fantastic. And it's my number 3.
All right. Alan.
Yes, we're dealing with British masters of 19th century romantic poetry, and Marty's inventing the dick slam subgenre of grindcore. That'll definitely get you some pig squeals coming out. You do that a couple of times.
I want to see some dick slammed in the door in the pit.
Wham wham wham.
Wee. Yeah,
that'll definitely mess with your wee. Okay. This is a weird episode.
Sorry, everybody.
Anyway, yes, like Gods of the Sun. Again, Tom's characterized it very well. This album is kind of when they kind of reach maybe their peak popularity in terms of getting the name out there, getting more people checking them out besides just underground metal fans. And as such, this is also the point where, yes, you started hearing more rumblings from fans about this one's, are they getting too mainstream? Are they getting too popular? The typical heavy metal mantra of if you're too popular, your steel cannot be true kind of blather that it was a thing around the release of this. And yeah, it's a step in a different direction. It doesn't sound exactly like any of the albums they've done before. It still works very well, even though it is maybe, like Tom said, a little more straightforward. The bride has a bad cough. She's going to be on bed rest for at least 3 to 5 days. She's going to need a doctor's note to make up her physics class. But she's not really terminal or anything at this point. But
the fact is normies don't listen to 12-minute songs. That's a big reason.
Yeah, things here are packaged to be a little more digestible, a little more palatable to a wider audience, but it still works very well for what it is. When this one came out, I was hearing a lot of good reviews of it. I was also hearing some pretty shitty, they've sold out, this is the end of them kind of reviews. If I remember right, I got this as a promo that one of the stores I had moved. I was in a different part of the country by that point, and they had gotten a promo copy and just essentially let me have it. So as is like, okay, I'm just gonna have to play it for myself, and I actually liked it. Pretty much right from the get go. It's like it's different, but it's still cool. I still like what they're doing here. I remember there were actually a few people that had commented that they almost felt like this was their attempt at being Metallica or something, which was kind of a weird head scratch moment. But some of the riffing on here, could especially on tracks like It Will Come, there is some slightly heavier riffage that could have been featured on a mid-90s Metallica album. It's not as much of a stretch as it was when I first heard people making the statement. But yeah, lots of good tracks too. I agree. Yeah, For My Fallen Angel, it's very overwrought, slow, pretty song, but it's what My Dying Bride does, and they do it very well. You can be cheesy and yet do it extremely well at the same time. It can still pull those emotional strings really easy, even when you recognize that they're laying it on a bit thick, perhaps. Let's see, but yeah, It Will Come is really good. Really, the album ends very strongly too. I think all the tracks that are heading towards that finale work quite well. I was thinking there's one other I was going to mention. Yeah, Grace Unbearing I like also. If there's a knock on this album for me, it maybe hasn't aged as well as the other early ones from their catalog. I think in the past I would have ranked this one higher than I'm going to tonight. I still have it at 5. So I still have it 5th overall out of their catalog. So it's still a good album with a lot of strong songs. But I think if we'd done this, 5 years ago, it probably would have easily been 4th, maybe 3rd. But it's, maybe it doesn't hold up quite as strongly over time, but it's still doing quite okay for itself. Good album, not one to overlook. And, don't believe the haters. It's still good stuff. So Marty, where did so I guess you said you kind of jumped ship after Angel of the Dark River. So
I did.
When did you get a chance to hear this album?
It was sent to Worm Gear as a promo.
Okay.
You want to call Paula Hogan? There's her address from back in 1996. Her phone number.
AOL. She still has her AOL going.
Yeah. I don't know how many guys are in the band at this point. 6. I don't know. Can you imagine?
It's still a stable lineup at this point. I've actually was sorry to interrupt, but I was paying attention to that. It's still the same stable lineup they've had on Angel and Turn Loose the Swan. So they haven't really had any. We're going to get there for sure, but at this point, they have kept the same membership despite the style changes.
And it's funny because I'm looking at the back of this. There are 4 labels attached to this. There's Peaceville, Mayhem Records, Fierce Productions, and Music for Nations are all attached to this. So My Dying Bride at this point are starting to be kind of a viable commodity. Imagine being 6 guys sitting around waiting to see your album cover for the first time, and the art department pulls up this sweet little Photoshop classic. I mean, if I was in the band, I don't think I'd be going, right, perfect, mate. You got the little purple butterfly. You got the purple butterfly motif here. It just, oh my God, so bad. The art is, the early art is cool. This is where things start to go sideways. That papyrus font is just ridiculous.
Do you mean side boob?
It's going side boob. The music on here, there's moments where it's a little more commercial. There's moments where they're a little more refined. They're kind of trying to live within this gothic realm. This album works a bit better for me. I still hate the vocals. I just do. And they're always universally too loud in the mix. If it sat down in the music a little bit more, I think it'd be a little less grating to me. But where Angel in the Dark River was number 12, this is number 11. You guys sized it up pretty well. I skimmed this record this week. That butterfly it keeps me away. It keeps me away. This era, I just don't care about this band. I don't care. I'm so pissed off by how they left their inception. So good, so groundbreaking for the time. I don't want a band to stay the same forever. I mean, bands that have done that typically lose the muse really quickly. They put out boring albums. They just lose the plot. That youthful vigor is gone. I want a band to progress, but they just didn't go where I was. I don't know. It's me. It's not them. I'm just leave it there. Number 12. Wait, number 11. Number 11 for me. Yep. Here we go. So there's people who want to throw garbage at me, which is fine. I'm kind of overemphasizing for a laugh, but it did bother me a lot. And especially a band that I really liked a whole bunch. It's offensive to me for some reason. Tom.
I was expecting just a night of dark poetry. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, well, slamming your dick in a door doesn't have some sort of
just Shakespeare references. Poe references.
The onomatopoeia is just, outstanding.
Could not have been more wrong.
Probably was the same one from the Heart album, Rick. Exactly. God, just terrible art, man. Terrible.
I will say, and Melanie's been making fun of their artwork. I think they have a couple of fantastic album covers.
The early ones are cool.
Yeah, they're one of the most hit and miss bands ever in terms of album art. It's like some fantastic covers and a lot of terrible ones, but we lost them already. Well, quickly. I had this DVD which came out in '97, which has what is it called? For Darkest Eyes. There's a lot of iterations of this, but this is a concert live in Poland, and it has the music videos. That concert's really good, so this is worth checking out. So I just wanted to mention that.
Very cool. And now things get really interesting.
Yep, this is what year is this?
98.
34.788% complete. So I think this album is dog shit. I thought so when I bought it. This is probably for the show. For the show, I re-listened to it once. This is probably only the 5th time I've ever listened to it, and I still think it's terrible. It's generally touted as their experimental, and you can hear a lot of like 9 Inch Nails influences and some different influences of the time. But to me, it's really awkwardly done, and there's just a lot of boring mid-90s generic doom metal riffs that go on and on forever. So even though it's experimental in a sense, there's just a lot of just boring riffs that to me are kind of the meat of it. I would say like the only thing I really like is like the main part of Der Überlebend, whatever. I think that's a cool riff. And then Bass Level Erotica is probably the closest thing to what you consider a normal My Dying Bride song. And there's actually a song that was left off the album called Follower that's on one of the comps. It's actually kind of like almost a trad metal song, and it's probably the best song from the sessions, but it wasn't. They should have left that
Heroin Chic song off there. Holy crap!
Heroin Chic is to me just an embarrassment.
Fucking terrible song.
And also like some of the melodies, they're not strong, but also they just sound awkward, like they were just made up on the spot. And some of this just sounds like they were just fucking around in the studio, especially Aaron. So, but in fairness, like oh, Phil. Oh, well, we love you too.
Again, Phil, what are you doing up there, man? Come on. I'm sorry. That sucks, brother. Hang in
there. And so what was I saying? Yeah, so I think this is one I've listened to the least. Like I said, probably 5 times since this came out, and I think it's horrible. So this is my number 14 with a bullet, or whatever, or whatever the opposite of with a bullet is. Is there a phrase? Like
I don't know.
Tanking.
Yeah.
A reverse bullet.
A reverse bullet.
You killed that bride with something, and you killed it pretty fast.
Yep. With a rock.
A dull rock.
Yeah.
But I will say that there are people that, and I've heard from that love this album. Like someone
Jeff Wagner loves this record from Melmaniacs. He loved this record.
And then Decibel or somebody called it like their best album. So there's definitely, I think in general it is kind of just really divisive, So that's it.
Alan.
Yeah. Tom and I remain on the same page. Got this one when it came out. Someone got it for me for Christmas that year, so it would have been Christmas '98. And I'd already heard some reviews. Obviously, I mean the title, the cover art. like you were saying before, Marty, when they lose the logo and go to the plain font, that's a warning sign. When they're using the plain font and a really just generically awkward, weird album title and a cover that I mean, the butterfly is one thing. The weird spider thing, that's all the warning bells are going off. But I've liked everything the band's done up to this point, so I want to give this one a chance. And I did, and I never could get into it. Yes, I've run into a few people here and there too that like the album, and if they do, hey, power to them. If they get something cool out of it, I don't. I don't see what they were trying to do. This doesn't feel like any kind of continuation or evolution from where they were at. This seems kind of like you said, Tom. It's like, hey, it's the middle of the 90s. I think we're supposed to make some kind of shitty sounding rave album. Let's do that.
And to me, it's like let's get in the studio without any songs written, fuck around and sell out hard, but we completely fucked it up.
Yeah.
It's like
what's popular these days? Kids, they like the Trent Reznor, right? What does he do? Let's do some heroin and I don't know, bang some things together. That'll work, right? It just doesn't. Again, I obviously don't mind when bands change their sound. I've liked all their shifts up to this point, but they really kind of jumped the shark at this stage. And the song "Heroin Chick," which has already been mentioned, it's not just that it's a bad song; it's a very lowbrow song for a group that up to this point has really sort of emphasized. We're joking around about it a lot tonight. But they do a good job with this sort of more, poetic, literate sense in their, lyrics. And then you get this song, which is just, fuck this, fuck that, fuck. And it's just like, what? Come on. Fred Durst can come up with better lyrics than that shit. What are you guys doing? It doesn't make any sense. It's not what I want to hear in a My Dying Bride album or really in any album. You could say, oh, would you like it better if it was packaged under another band name? No, I would not. This is the kind of thing that, yes, like, one of my former girlfriend's, roommates would have loved, and I would have been subjected to a couple of times, when hanging out at their place, and would have been just like, let's go do something else because that album is driving me nuts. It's a huge misfire. The album, as I think is well documented, it was very poorly received for the most part, very poorly reviewed. It was almost career suicide for them. The Bride wasn't the only one who almost ended up dead after this release. The band really was sort of just like, you guys going to do this, you're going to have to develop a whole new fan base, and nobody is flocking to check you out based on this album. So don't know what you're going to do. Have fun. It's worth noting too, this is the point where, the lineup was shifting. The drummer was out, Martin was out of the lineup. So whether they saw the writing on the wall and jumped ship, or if there were artistic differences and they just wanted nothing to do with this kind of crap, I don't know. I don't know if that was ever documented, but yeah, this is not a good album for me on any wavelength. And again, I replayed it a couple of times this week because it had been ages since I heard it, and I wanted to revisit it. Sometimes you get these kind of things later in life. I don't get this album. It is not the album for me at all. Rank 14th, whatever with a bullet, Tom was using. I want to tie a great big lead-filled rock to it so it can sink down to number 14 as fast as possible, because it's no contest. This is the worst album for me in their catalog.
And this is like the worst. If you can get this is the band photo on the CD. It's like the worst. It's just like Photoshop and their faces are blank. It looks terrible. You have to look at it, but it looks terrible.
Oh, look at this cool filter I found on Photoshop. Neat.
Nothing. They couldn't even get the band photos right. Excellent point, Tom.
Yeah.
All right, so Marty, your take. We're 66% complete talking about this album. So what does the last 33% have to say about 34%?
I have never heard this album until this week, and at this point, I'm done with My Dying Bride. I don't care. They could have sent this to me and I wouldn't have listened to it. I read a lot of reviews during this time hating it. My friend Jeff loved this record. So putting it on this week was interesting because I had the only expectation I had about it was bad. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, well, I could hear the thought process. We're going to try this new thing. Paradise Lost is doing it. But the thing of it is, Paradise Lost did it pretty well. That 1 second song in Draconian Times. I remember when I got 1 second, I laughed, threw it in the garbage. Like, well, I got to review it. So I pulled it out of the garbage. My third time I listened to it, I'm like, this album's great. Because it is. It's so catchy. So well done. Draconian Times. That album rules. It's so well written. So catchy. My Dying Bride, they weren't meant for this. This was not the path that they should have chosen. You could tell you could tell that was, well, they're doing it, so we're going to do it too. And it just, I will say it wasn't as wretched as I thought it was going to be until I hit that Heroin Chic song. That I'm like, wow, this is embarrassment, 1,000% embarrassment. But it was like, okay, it's just sort of pseudo, copying their buddies and their label buddies, and just to very poor result. They seem uninspired and tired at this point. And it's a 13 for me. I mean, I've listened to it once now. If I saw it in a used bin, I would not buy it. I don't need this record in my life. If it was a Paradise Lost record and it was as good as 1 second or something like that, preferred to be controversial than be straight bad. Well, yeah, Draconian Times it took me a few tries too, Pat, and that 1 second album too. Like I said, it spent a couple minutes in the garbage can before I realized I needed to review it, and I end up loving it. They're great, catchy, sorrowful, just good stuff. Well written, poppy. This is just bad. 34.788% complete crap. 13.
100% crap. 34.78% waste of time.
But it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. I expected it to be way worse, but I was surprised. I'm like, okay, a couple of these songs are okay, but it's thinly veiled. You can tell what they were trying to do. They're trying to move the financial ball forward like Paradise Lost did, except Paradise Lost succeeded. Anyway, hi, Tom. 1999.
Light at the End of the World. So, and the band admitted as much, that this was kind of like the make good album after the previous one.
Please don't call that last album Cold Lake. Please don't.
Like they wanted to please the fans. And to me, this basically this sounds like the album that would have transitioned between As the Fire Withers and Turn Loose the Swans, basically. But I don't think it's fair. I think I look at it that way when it came out, in terms of they're kind of ripping their earlier stuff off, but I don't really think that's fair now. I think this does have an individual sound where it's kind of like As the Flower Withers, the heavy death metal, more mid-tempo, but there's the abrupt shifts that you get with Turn Loose the Swans, especially like the first song, which is probably my favorite, She Is the Dark, where it kind of the atmospheric without drums of him singing with the atmosphere behind it, then it revs into the death metal, and back and forth. And I think this album is solid and consistent. And it kind of has its own style that's a little different from their other albums. I guess the only knock against it is just that there's not like any great songs to me, but everything is good from beginning to end, and it flows. And so it's my number 6. And
hey, all right, mine too.
So I think this would be a good one if you're just familiar with the first couple of albums and you want to branch out. I think this might be a good one to check out. So
right on. Alan.
I have one last joke about the last album I didn't get to use. I'm sorry. I know we were trying to move past it, but I just have to, throw this out there. I cannot, for the life of me, look out or think about the last song from 34.7% complete without hearing it to the tune of the 80s pop song. It's like, get under your wings and into your arms. Which obviously isn't how they sing it.
Billy Ocean.
Billy Ocean.
Yeah, Billy Ocean on the mind.
I cannot avoid thinking of it as a Billy Ocean song.
You're a diehard License to Drive guy.
we're not going to talk about how many times I saw that movie. We're just, we didn't watch it for the two Corys. We watched it for the other headliner. Whatever.
Billy Ocean brought up on our 100th episode, people. That's where we're going.
We went there.
I
just that song title always cracked me up because sometimes in life you got to make your own fun.
That's right.
And sometimes in life you have to make apologies for the giant mistake you made and almost torpedoed your career, and you got to get things back on track.
Get out of my dreams, you bastard! It's in my head. Get into my car. Oh.
And so, yes, like you said, Tom, sometimes you just got to make the apology album. You got to get back on track.
We're so sorry. Please don't hate us.
You just got to be like, we done fucked up, but here you go. We know what you wanted, and here it is.
You should just rename this the Dick Slam and Billy Ocean episode. It's like,
get into my door. Ow!
Ow! We didn't want to do the typical 100th celebration where we play clips. We went the Dick Slam and Billy Ocean route, way off the reservation.
We're just going to get Rick to create a little GIF that's animated in the Family Guy style, and you're sitting there slamming a door, screaming his head off, and we're just going to play it on a loop for 3.5 hours next week.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It'll be the best sounding Cannibal Corpse album released in over a decade. Anyway, so yes, they go back to basics, but they've lost folks along the way. At this point, you only have 3 original members left, the 3 A's. They've got some new folks rounding out the lineup, and they go back to the basics. What do folks know us for? What do folks like us for? Let's forget about trying to appeal to this, big audience and, trying to, pretend we're ever going to be, some kind of, giant, popular, goth rock band or something. Let's just give the people what they want. We had a good thing going, and we can have it again if we fix it now. And they did so spectacularly well. This album came out kind of quietly, like we were talking about in the show intro. There wasn't as much fanfare about this because most people, had written the band off after the last fiasco. But this album works incredibly well. Like you said, Tom, right off the bat, they start off with an incredibly strong track with She Is the Dark. It makes, it leaves no question whatsoever about what this album is going to be like. That there's not going to be any bullshitting. There's not going to be any butterflies. There's, the bride is dying. We are sad. We're upset. We're going to even sound a little angry for the first time in a long time here. We're going to get back to a little anger and break out those death vocals at some times. Because, yes, we are going to right this ship. And they do. And they made an album. It's become one of my favorites over time. I was always surprised not only how quickly they got things back on track, but that it wasn't one of these situations where they had to slowly ramp it back up. Like when we talked about Saxon a few weeks ago. Saxon, bottomed out, and it took them like 4, 5, 6 albums before it felt like they were really firing on all 8 cylinders again. My Dying Bride goes from, 34.7% back to almost 100% in one album. So, kudos to them for owning up to the mistake and, doing the right thing. Tons of good tracks on here. The Night He Died, is, a really good, sad one. I like the Fever Sea, that one again, a little more aggressive at points, a little more churning.
Christliar is my Christliar and the Opener are my 2 favorite songs.
Yes, Christliar is really good. One of my favorites, Into the Lake of Ghosts. I just really like that mournful melody they have in the chorus. It's very catchy, instantly recognizable. Even they revisit, the Sear Me series with Sear Me 3.
And I think that works really well, because if you see that, you think of like Unforgiven 3. There's a lot of bad examples. They did that really great, like the 3 versions.
They did, yeah, and it helps tie. Once again, it says, "Here's what you wanted." We're tying it right back to the old stuff. It right here. If you will just look at the track list, you'll see evidence that we're going to do the thing. We've got the logo back. We've got a real Death Doom album title back. We're going right back home, and it works great. Love the album, always have. It's another one that I will still, when I'm thinking which My Dying Bride album do I want to play, that soft and going to win it out. So things are right once again in the world of My Dying Bride. I didn't know where this one would rank, but when I've sat down and worked through them all this week, I have this one as my second favorite of all time. I think it really, even though it is in a way just kind of going back to what they were already good at, it's incredibly good. It's a loaded album, lots of top-notch songs. I play it a lot by My Dying Bride standards. It gets the number 2 slot behind only Turn Loose the Swans. And I think your other point also, Tom, is right. If there's anybody who only listened to the first 2 or 3 albums and missed a big chunk of their career, this would be an excellent album to reintroduce yourself to the band, or even for someone that's not familiar with the band. This showcases a lot of what they do very, very well. So yeah, it's a good entry point for My Dying Bride.
Yeah, and it's one of their heavier albums. So if you're the death metal As the Flower Withers person, this is one to check out.
You can, yes, it will still appeal to you if you like their heavier sound. It will still appeal to you if you like, their darker, more ambient, flowery sound, or whether you like their withering flower sound. Either way. All right, Marty, I have waxed eloquent about it enough. Your turn, sir.
For our 100th episode, I just wanted to share our bit of news, Alan.
Okay.
Everybody has been really excited about Alan rekindling his printing press from back in his old days, and we worked out a deal with My Dying Bride, and these are the next brand of puffy shirts Alan's going to do for. He's gonna get the puffy ink out again, and he's gonna make some My Dying Bride shirts. It's gonna be this image. So everybody, get your PayPal ready, and we'll announce it here in the next couple weeks.
Maybe this needs to be like another one of our tier goals. That when we get to a certain number of viewers, we will do a live stream episode of me making a My Dying Bride puffy paint T-shirt. Everybody can buy the materials and follow along at home.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be great.
We could make that happen.
We could
that
make it
would
happen.
Not be that hard.
I will say, and I'll bring it up. I think they at least have 2 fantastic album covers, and we'll get to them. Everyone's making fun of the album covers. There are 2, in my opinion, that are outstanding.
They do have some
coming up.
Yeah. They do have some clunkers, yes. But all right, Marty, what do you think of this light that is at the end of the world?
You know what's hilarious about this record? You know that there's at least 2 or 3 guys in the band that are salty that the last album wasn't as well received as it was.
Probably.
There's maybe 2 or 3 guys that are like, I thought we were really shining out on that one, mate.
We were going to be big, and it's like we got our dick slammed in the door.
Am I at an Australian pub?
Yeah, that's about as good as it's going to get right there.
That's the Southwest Yorkshire accent. It's only known from like 13 villages with a total population of 230.
They're all related.
5 of them were turned into like a government tenants, after the war.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't listened to this record since it came out either, and I just have the promo of it. And there is a licking their wounds reset. This is a band reset album. That's what this is. Probably not everybody in the band was psyched about it. I'm sure Aaron wasn't super thrilled that he was probably coerced back into doing death vocals again. That's just my opinion. But man, I'm glad he did. This is the death vocals return. She is the Dark and Eden Beast both rule. And that's like a 1-2 punch coming right out of the gate. You have 8 minutes, 27 seconds of She is the Dark, and Eden Beast is it's just over 11 minutes. Again, they reset their formula. They got some new members in the band. This is where the band starts to, the last 1, 2, 3 albums didn't exist at this point. In my opinion, it's kind of where they probably should have went after Turn Loose the Swans. I mean, every band is allowed to do whatever they want to do. There was some experimentation there. It ran its course. This was the right choice. It just is, whether it was to make the fans happy or not, this is the right choice for this band.
Sorry, Marty, just jumping quickly. I kind of agree with Tom's point, though. I think it does. He's right. It does feel almost like what they could have done right before Turn Loose the Swans rather than after. It
exactly. It would have been a good transition between those 2. That's great.
Flower, light, swan.
Yeah,
that's like the natural order of things.
At certain points in songs, I do hear a little bit of The Angel in the Dark River, like some of the melodies.
Yeah.
So Just want to say that
this band never lost their sense of melody, even on, you know, Angel in the Dark River. I'm ragging on it, but there's some great melodies on there. There's too much repetition and too much fluff on that record. But is this their best? It isn't, but it's really good. It's a step back in the right direction. The cover is a slight improvement. It's still not great. I like it, but I don't love it. The images are one thing, but the whole just graphic design of it is another. It's just
I like
mishmash.
it I like it in concept, but if you look at it close, it looks like what it is, which is bad early digital art.
Yep, totally, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, this is my number 6 as well, Tom. We're cheating off the same paper at this point, but good record. It was good to hear it again. And in fact, we're coming up on a good run of music. They've got a really good run of records here. Yeah, I'm excited to get into them. Tom, you're next with 2001.
Yeah, so I just want to point out I have this compilation, Meisterwork Volume 1.
Yes.
But the CD is actually Light at the End of the World.
Oh,
so apparently,
really?
Apparently, the first printing they screwed it up or did something. So if you play that, so I can't actually listen to what's on here, but yeah. So shout out to Dreadful Rick.
Shout out
Hours, namesake. So this to me is a really this is a unique. I think they did build. I think what Marty said in terms of like a reset. I think they like kept building off of the previous album, but to me this is introducing like some post Radiohead, post rock influences, but unlike the 34 or whatever bullshit,
heroin chic
in terms of like modern. I think it works really, really well, and it's not throughout the entire album. And the perfect example is the opening track, which is my favorite. The title track, "Dreadful Hours," I think is fantastic, and it's like it has like a driving post rock kind of thing to it, and the whole album has more of that kind of driving vibe at certain points, and then. It reminds me of the song "Your River" in terms of it sort of builds and it's more sad, and then it kind of goes off the rails into the angry death metal. And then the song "La Fila della Tempesta" reminds me of something that would be on the Angel in the Dark River. "My Hope to Destroy" is a great song, and again, they do "Return to the Beautiful," which is technically not a bonus track. It's actually the last song. They re-record the song, and it's not that different from "As the Flower Withers." So I was not sure how to rank this because of that. So what I just thought, this is like the same problem with "Suffocation Pierced from Within" with "Breeding the Spawn," where they re-record that. But to me, it's one of their best songs, and the sound quality is better on this version. So to me, I just see it as a plus for this, and not like, hey, it's a slapped on bonus track kind of thing, because it's not technically. But yeah, I think I don't know how people rate this album, but it seems like this is maybe their most underrated album to me. It's my number 4. I think the whole thing flows really well, and like I said, I think that sort of driving post rock thing that they use, it's sort of a welcome element to where they're not as I think the one previous album, "Light at the End of the World," the one knock is that it's a little samey at times.
Yeah.
But you don't really get that with this. There's a lot of great melodies and dynamics and variety on this album. So it's my number 4.
All right. Alan.
All right. My opinion is going to be less popular on this album. As like Zach just mentioned, this is first appearance of new guitarist Tamish Glencross, who does fine on the album. It's certainly not a bad album. For whatever reason, as an entire album, it never has fully clicked with me, though. When I go through it track by track, it's like, yeah, most of these are pretty good. Like this one, like that one. Yeah, My Hope the Destroyer is good. Return to the Beautiful, yeah, it's a very good version on that track. So yeah, it's not like I don't like any of the songs. It's just some of the intangibles here don't seem to sit quite right with me. One thing for me, at least, and maybe it's just that I played Light at the End of the World so much. This album now feels like they're like, okay, we're back. We know where to stay, and we're staying there. We are not going to experiment or do any, we're staying right here, very close to home. We're not taking any kind of lead off first base. We're staying close. We're not going to piss anybody off again. No more weird hallucinogenic spiders or butterflies. Please, we use the logo. We'll play the heavy stuff. You don't have to worry, which is fine. But this was a band that through all their early albums always kind of offered something a little bit new. So for the first time, it's starting to feel like they are playing it pretty safe on the album. It also feels just like a very long album to me. It's one of those albums that by the time I get to the end of it, I'm just like, okay, I am done with this album. I do not want to hear this album again for quite a while. Actually, it's not that it's bad in any way. It just something just doesn't quite click. A lot of people seem to like this cover. I really don't.
I don't like the painting either, really.
And it's
or the color scheme.
The color scheme is part of the problem. It's a really weird color scheme. It almost is it's like Crayola, hues or something. And this, sort of, very simply done angel.
I like the back better. Thing. So if you look at it as this, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here's my view of the art. This is what I was sent as a promo back in the day. The CD. Here you go.
Yeah. So again, it's just those little things, should the cover art throw me off that much? No, it really shouldn't. But for this album, it always does. I always look at it, I'm just like, I could play that, or I could play one of the albums that doesn't look like it's, done in, wax crown. I don't know. It won't quite sit right with me. This, past couple of weeks since we set this topic up with Tom, I've went back, I've played it a couple times, and again, I'm not trashing the music on it at all. There's really no bad songs on the album, but there's no songs that really grab me and stand out. That if I was assembling my My Dying Bride best of playlist, what do I pick from this album? Some albums, there's half a dozen songs I'd want to pick. This one, I mean, do I pick the remake of Return of the Beautiful? It's really, really good, but the fact that it's kind of competing for best song on the album is telling me something that, it's not quite the set of songs for me. So again, while it's not a bad album in terms of like a letter grade, I'd still, give it a decent one. But in terms of a ranking, I've got it down at 10th. This one, we're getting into a phase here where the albums to me start to feel like they're just playing it a little too safe. They're getting a little, it's not that each song sounds exactly like the other, but from album to album to album, they're in their lane, and they're going to stick to that lane very closely for a bit. So yeah, only number 10 for me on this one. And a lot of folks have been saying in the chat that they like this one and rank it high. That is cool, and I can see why folks would. But it is not the album for me.
All right. Well, for me, I think the biggest improvement on this record is the production. The mix was pretty good. The guitars, in particular, very rich distortion in the guitar tone, which I don't know, just a good saturation in the distortion on this one. Writing style, there's a great mix of clean and death vocals, and it goes in between the moods throughout the record. I put it at number 8. I think Light at the End of the World is a little bit better, but I do like the production on this one. There's nothing wrong with this record. And if I were to walk into a store and I found it used, I would buy it just to have the cover and stuff, because these things, they serve their purpose, but man, they're annoying. They just go in a box and they're lost forever. You never end up listening to these records because they're not in your CD rack, But anyway, yeah, good record. I see what Alan's saying. It starts to drag a bit, but it's good stuff. They're maybe trying to. I mean, they're coming up with a really good, another good transitional record for the better coming up here, but it's going to take another one to get there. Anyway, yeah, 8 for me. Tom, we're going into 2004.
And I was going to cover the boobs, but this hype sticker already took care of that. This is Songs of Darkness, Words of Light, 2004. And funnily enough, what Alan was saying about Dreadful Hours was kind of how I feel about this album. I actually have it ranked the same. I have it ranked number 10. To me, this is, and there's not a bad song. I do really like A Doomed Lover, which is the closer, especially how it closes with that that repeating riff at the end. But the rest of it, it's starting to feel a little by the numbers in terms of there's some riffs that are, to me, a little more generic. There's more of Aaron just singing along to the riff.
He does that in his death vocals. He's never been good at breaking away.
Yeah. Well, to me, on this one, it bothers me. It's the first time it bothered me. And then some of the transitions aren't as interesting, the dynamic shifts. But this is still solid. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of it. But to me, it kind of points... kind of what Alan was saying, where I'm getting the feeling like they're kind of in their groove and we have it figured out and it's not as inspired. But having said that, and it sounds like I knocked the album. It's still it's still a heavy and dark, solid doom metal album from beginning to end. And it delivers on that. So, but yeah, like I said, my number 10. And this comes with a refrigerator magnet for some reason, this box.
Nice.
So I don't know why I should put it on my fridge. Actually.
I was gonna say, dude, why isn't that on your fridge right now?
Well, because it's got demon statue boobs on it.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, well, yeah. Well,
Tom, get that magnet, get out of your case and onto your fridge.
Oh,
Billy Ocean.
Well, then I'll start having to buy a bunch of metal refrigerator magnets because it'll be the only one and it'll stand out.
I don't see a problem with this.
All right,
this is all upside.
Okay,
you don't see it very often, but I like it when companies do the refrigerator magnets as like the free throw in with the CD. I like that touch as opposed to, I don't know, whatever else they could put in.
We've got two Iron Flame refrigerator magnets and a Duran Duran one up on our fridge.
What have I got over here? I've got a bunch of Iron Maiden ones that are bootlegs. I've got a Carnage one, and I've got a White Boy and the Average Rat Band. Heavy Metal Museum does a lot of magnets with some of their releases. So shout out to them.
Okay,
yeah,
Alan.
so that was it. Yeah.
All right. Everything Tom said, but like it a bit less even. Sorry. Now, one thing before this, I do want to just give a very quick shout out while we're not ranking them or anything. Before this one came out, the band did do a live album, Voice of the Wretched, and this is a really good live album. I typically am not always the biggest fan of live albums, and emotional music like this can be tough to pull off in a live setting. I picked this one up strictly because it showed up in the used bin one day when I wasn't buying anything else. So I'm like, yeah, sure, $6. I'll give it a chance. But yeah, it's got a good track list, very good sound, and always been impressed how well this one worked as a live album.
I don't have that, but I just listened to it once on Spotify to prep for the show, and it is really good. I love the version of Symphonaire and Furnace that they do. Like it's super heavy and pretty awesome. So
yeah. So yeah, if you come across this and you think, I don't know how that's going to work live, yeah, it's worth giving a shot. Anyway, back to words of something, streams of something, voice. This one, everything I said about the Dreadful Minutes is the same for this album.
Dreadful Hours.
Yeah, but the songs here just don't feel as strong. Like Tom said, they really are starting to feel samey. And it's not that the songs are bad at all, but you feel like they are in a way. Yeah. Like you said, it's a little bit paint by numbers. They're kind of going through the motions. You know, a song like Catherine Blake, it has all the basic My Dying Bride components, but instead of coming together as this like really cool song, it feels more like, you know, they just kind of went down, check. Got this worked in? Yep, check. Sarah got something to do on this one? Check. Okay, I guess that's a song. I don't like the cover art again.
Oh,
this
it's
one
bad. It's so bad.
It's really bad, you know, lame-o CGI kind of thing. Never worked for me at all. The album's atmosphere also shifts away from being, again, the classic, you know, woe is me. It's so hard reading Edgar Allan Poe 20 hours a day. This one, you know, just shifts a little bit more darker, gloomier, heavier, but somehow doesn't sit quite right with me. So yeah, this is not the My Dying Bride album for me. It's not that any of the songs individually are terrible. They just they feel like, you know, they're just kind of in a holding pattern at this point. And at this point, we're already on, what is this? This is, you know, the band's eighth album. We've got 6 more albums to. They don't need a generic My Dying Bride album. And that's what this one ends up kind of feeling like to me. And I know some folks, again, really like the album. That's absolutely cool. We were seeing a lot of variety in, you know, the eras and albums people like tonight, which is great. But yeah, this one, I've got it ranked 12th. And the only reason it's not ranked lower is because 34.7% something exists. And there's another album that's kind of infamous that we'll be getting to later, that those two had to be lower. If it wasn't for that, I probably would have this album even lower, despite the fact that, as a letter grade, I'm going to still give it like a C, maybe a C minus, but it does not measure up to the rest of their catalog for me personally. Just doesn't. But kudos to the folks that really like it. That's absolutely fine. I got no problem with folks that like it. It's not a bad album. It's just kind of a average album.
Yeah, I think I saw someone a ranking where they had it as their number 1 or number 2 online.
Yeah,
I said, yeah, earlier, like the rankings of these are kind of all over the place after you get past the first 2.
Yeah,
they really are. Yep. And TJ, that's absolutely cool if you like it, man. But it is just not the one for me. Sorry, Darren. Don't die on us, Darren. Hang in there. Things are going to get better soon.
I don't have a lot to say about this record, although I do feel that Aaron's clean vocals are improving here. He's dropping the woe is me stuff and just focusing on a more of a pure voice. They're mixing him a lot better. Really, this album, you know, with the Dreadful Hours, I picked that as number 8. This is number 9. It isn't. Those albums could have been probably flip-flopped. They're kind of sailing on autopilot at this point. They reset the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
They're going with it. This album cover art is so bad. It is just, it's bad. It's really bad. I don't know. I just don't get it. It's a band with this kind of following and popularity. You think they would have some money for an art budget. I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, solid record. It doesn't bother me. I enjoyed it. Better vocals, number 9. Don't have a lot to say. You guys kind of, you worked over pretty well. Tom, you're back, and we are on 2006.
Yes, A Line of Deathless Kings. And to me, this is a similar thing, but it's a little worse. And this album, I do like the song Thy Raven Wings, but there's probably 3 songs that I really don't like, and then the other ones, it's sort of comparable to the previous album, where there's just some generic riffing. Also, Aaron's voice, how it's recorded or how he's performed, he just kind of sounds a little bored to me, or like not mixed well. Yeah, and then again, like it's a little more annoying in terms of him matching the riffs, in terms of it bothering me. But yeah, sort of not dissimilar to the album we just talked about, but to me, even less so. And it's my number 13. But I don't think it's bad. It's okay, and that's it. So it's way better than my number 14. But
all right, Alan.
All right. This is probably the album I've been the most back and forth on over the years. Got it again when it came out. Wasn't necessarily expecting a ton from it, since again I'm pretty lukewarm on the previous 2 albums. Initially, I liked it pretty good. I felt like it was a kind of a strong comeback's the wrong word. They're not coming back from anywhere. They're still sticking to their particular idiom, but this album just hit me as a bit stronger than the previous 2. Then went through a period where I didn't think much of this album. Kind of like Tom just described it. Felt a little bland, and different little elements of it started kind of irritating me. So it kind of slipped in the rankings. Replaying it this month, giving it some spins for the first time in several years. It was kind of back the other way, though. Actually, I feel it's a pretty strong outing. So, and it's not that they're doing anything specifically different. They have a different drummer, but there's not a major lineup shakeup here or anything. I don't care for the first track too much. To Remain Tuneless feels a little clunky, so it doesn't get off to a good start, but it gains as it goes on. And I think the album, again, towards the end, the songs are doing quite well. Not a ton to say about it, but yeah, at this point, I drank it pretty high. It actually ended up shaking out at number 4, which I'll admit feels a bit high for it. Part of this is that, like Gods of the Sun, has slipped a little bit over the years. I think, again, at another time, like Gods of the Sun would be a little higher, and this one would probably be a notch or 2 lower. Sometimes this might be several notches lower, but at least revisiting it this month, I've liked the album, and as such, it ended up with a pretty high rank to it. But yeah, not a whole lot else to say for details. TJ, that's a fair criticism for it. Yeah, there are some points where the lyrics on this one don't feel quite up to their usual high standard. It is still better than Heroin Chic, though, so it's not their worst by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so Marty, Tom's got this one kind of low. I've got this one kind of high. Where do you have it?
This is the album. I mean, I heard the 3 albums that came out before this, and I was just kind of over the band at that time. This promo came in the mail. I threw it on. I was kind of blown away by it. I'm with TJ on this. In fact, hearing the death vocals on here, I'm like, whoa, he's back. Little did I realize I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the 3 albums that came before it, where he'd been back for a while. So, I mean, but it got me listening to that. And then revisiting in this week, I think the album is front stack. I think the first half of the album is really good. I mean, they're taking the formula they've been in. They're starting to expand. Their riff ideas are getting, in song structuring, is getting a little more adventurous, while still staying within their formula. The album, last 3 or so songs really kind of trail off for me, but I think this is a good record. This beat out the other 2 before it. This is number 7 for me. I think it's solid, and it's getting them set up for the last part of their career here. I mean, they're not done yet, but leading up, they get a lot better as they go here and there. But this is a good one for me. Number 6. Tom,
what did you have it as, 6 or 7, Marty?
7. I'm sorry.
Okay,
it was 6. I scribbled it out, made something else 6. It's 7. It's 7.
Okay, all good.
Tom.
Okay, and I'll just quickly mention this is a DVD CD combo concert, an Ode to Woe, that came out after. You're laughing at the name of it.
Yeah, this is so
an Ode to Woe.
Whoa, like I can see Keanu going, whoa.
I think, yeah.
An ode to whoa.
Is that Blossom? Was that the dude's catchphrase?
Be dreadful to each other.
Be dreadful to each other.
Stallions. But this is a really good, I think it's live in Amsterdam, really good concert DVD to check out in 020. So I think it's For Lies I Sires next, 2009. This is some of the same criticisms of the previous album I have, but there's more there's definitely more variety. This is kind of there's some there's like a borderline black metal song in this album, which to me is a little weird in terms of the flow of the record. And I think they brought back the violin and they didn't have it on the previous album. Maybe or something, I can't remember now. I would say my favorite song is Shadow Haunt. So I like the more variety. To me, it's a little better than the previous album, just because there's more variety on it. And I guess this one and the album previous, I guess just some of the melodies that they're doing vocally and just within the song, I just found kind of boring. And that, I think, is my biggest criticism with these two albums. But there's definitely some cool songs on this. And like I said, Shadow Haunt is probably my favorite song. And that's it.
All right. Alan.
Yeah, they do have a new violinist on this album, so that's you're right, Tom. That's featured back in the music more so this time around. Yeah, this one is a pretty good album. It's not one I play a lot. When it came out, I remember thinking, okay, it's a solid. It's another My Dying Bride album, but unlike what was happening a few years earlier, it didn't feel like they were getting stuck in a rut. It's like, this is different enough from the previous albums to stand on its own 2 feet. It's not introducing anything radically different. They're not taking those big evolutionary steps they took, in the early and mid 90s. They're staying like, in a, comfy, little, British size, B&B, and they're kind of, wandering around the room a little bit, let's go over here, and check this out. And then go over to the breakfast nook. But, so yeah, it's at least different enough, to hold interest. Not a lot of things, that stand out about it. So yeah, it's not one I go back to and play very much, but I still like the album. I just lost my rankings off the screen. So let's pull that back up. I ended up with this one, kind of in the middle at number 8. Letter grade wise, I'd give it a B. I think, it's a solid enough album and it fits in their discography fine. Just doesn't have a lot to make it, jump out and get the repeat listens that, albums like Light at the End of the World or Angel in the Dark River tend to get, at least for me. But it is a good album. It's one I don't have. I would definitely pick it up if I found it used. I'm not going to go out and, order it for, $15.99. So it's very much that kind of album for me. Oh, thank you, Darren.
Thanks, Darren.
Darren's a good sport.
Darren is good. He's agreed with us on some things, and we have also hurt him. With some,
I don't know if I said it's my number 12.
You got it 12. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got it at 8, and it's one. Yeah, it could be a notch higher, a notch lower, and it wouldn't make a big difference. But still a solid album, and one I would have no problems putting on the shelf. If I find it at the right price. Marty, what do you think of this one?
I don't own this one either. So listening to it this week was my first stab at this one. I wrote down good but murky production. A chapter in loathing. It starts off with a blast beat, brutal vocals. It reminds me of something that could have been on As the Flower Withers. Has that same feel to it. It's a good record. It doesn't really differentiate from the 4 that came before it. I liked it. I'll pick it up if I find it used. Number 10 on the list for me.
And the thing I forgot to mention is the lyrics on that album are oddly bad. Like it's like if you were imagining like a My Dying Bride ripoff band where they have this sort of trying to be a dark poet and they're doing these cliches, it's kind of gets into that territory oddly, and that's another kind of annoying thing of it.
Yeah, Chris. I was just reading. Chris had mentioned that in the chat a moment ago, but I hadn't pulled it up on screen. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. You and he are on the same wavelength here.
I remember reading in Maniacs back in the day. Someone interviewed Aaron, and he said how much he struggled with lyrics. He said it would be time for them to go into the studio, and he would have just nothing. He struggled. He didn't always know what to say. He didn't know which avenue to take. He almost hated the process is what the vibe I got. He just really didn't like the whole lyric thing. He struggled so much with it, which it was kind of surprising to hear. Typically the front man's got things to say, my feelings and stuff. And it sounded like it was a struggle for him. So there's times you knock it out of the park, and other times you walk, and other times you strike out. This is the way it goes.
And thus sometimes your pen is as empty as the hole left in your heart.
My quill
after
for
she
ink.
has gone. You didn't think I was done with that yet? No.
I think Marty was going to talk about his quill yearning for something.
Yearning for ink, yes.
Yeah.
Forlorn ink.
If you slam that quill in the door a few times, that'll get the ink flowing, and then you can write some better lyrics.
Sometimes you have to reset the ink by slamming it in the door, the quill in the door a few times. Change your way of thinking, your perception on things. All right. Tom is back, and we are on a 2011 album.
I just want to point out this EP came out before the next one. It's just one song that's like 20-something minutes long. It's actually really good. I
don't mind the cover either. That's actually one that's okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Oh, yeah, I would say. And this reminds me a bit of in the style of Turn Loose the Swans. So this is definitely something I would really recommend if you haven't heard it. And there's a couple CDs that it's on as well. But this next one is not heavy metal. Aventa. I guess there's different versions of this. I have a 2-disc version, and it's like almost 90 minutes. So this is basically, apparently, as for their 20th anniversary, they did this project, which is all just classical goth experimental. There's no rock or metal, anything. There's some opera singing, and they yeah.
There's more than some.
And like poetry reading over dark ambience for 90 minutes. And I would say it's best to look at this as just like a side project and not a My Dying Bride album. And if you're into bands like Autumn Tears and Black Tape for a Blue Girl, Ellen, this could appeal to you. Not really for metal fans, but I actually do really like it as something to play in the background, especially whatever the first track. And they oddly rework a lot of melodies throughout their career. And there's like For My Fallen Angel, Kiss to Remember, From Darkest Skies, and a lot of different melodies that they rework. But I don't really think it's for metal fans. I have it at my number 8, but I don't think the really ranking matters. I wasn't really sure where to rank it, so I just put it in the middle. So, yeah.
Alan, what did you think of this sad, depressive, operatic masterpiece?
You got to work on that, man. That's not doing it for me at all.
That was maybe a little horny sounding. Sorry.
That sounds like you're peeking at me with binoculars from across the street or something.
Yep.
Stay out of my dreams and do not get into my car.
God, let that song go. It's never. Oh my God, it's never gonna go.
Yeah.
And I don't have the Bring Me Victory EP. I don't think any of us have it. Human Flaw asked about it.
No,
I do not have that one.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, with this album, I didn't know if we should even really include it in the rankings or not. It lists Aaron as like the only member, even so. I think you're right, Tom, that it's almost more of a side project. It kind of reminds me of when we talked about Blind Guardian.
I was going to say, this is their Twilight Orchestra.
It's their Twilight Orchestra, where it's basically, Hansi finally gets to write a classical album, and proud we are of him. Pat him on the head and make him take it, to show mom and dad, his macaroni one of the rest of us want to see.
Yes.
The thing that's a little weird with this album is, reading up on it, because this was not one I had ever heard. This was the one thing I had skipped, out of their catalog. So I had to go back and look it up. It sounded like it was originally meant to be sort of this concept where they were going to take parts of old songs and kind of remake them into these more classical operatic pieces. And at face value, that sounds kind of interesting because they do have the type of music and the type of poetry and stuff that could work in that context if done well. So I was like, okay, well, maybe this will be interesting. Let me give it a listen and see what I think. The reviews on it are horrible, no matter where you look. I was like, people, reviews, you got to take those with a grain of salt. We all learned important lessons looking at how Metal Archives ranks Saxon albums. For God's sake, people, quit listening to those mid-'80s albums so much. They are not better than the early 80s stuff. You bunch of heathens. The problem with the concept when you actually play the album is that they use almost no pieces of the old music. It's very, very sparse. They'll take you'll have one of the first songs is, relatively long. And they take one little riff, one kind of idea, and it kind of floats there in the background for a few measures. And that's it. They don't really do anything interesting with it. They're not building something new around it. Most of this music is just, it's this kind of airy ambient stuff with the operatic, just, kind of stuff. You don't get my good opera voice. You got to pay to hear that shit.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, damn right, OnlyFans. How you think this collection gets paid for back here? It ain't by teaching. That's fair.
Check out my fucking feet.
Fart in a jar and sell it. That's why I'm only drinking beer out of mason jars now. I got to recycle these for my side project.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we? Yes, Avinta. So it was kind of an interesting idea. And I think if they had really stuck to that concept and really pulled, lots of these bits and pieces from older songs and tried to weave them into some new classical orchestrated, type of music, that might have worked. It could have sounded kind of cool, but that's not really what they did. They just make this very empty, vapid sounding background music. And every now and then they'll drop in a little bit of melody from some song that they wrote 16 years ago. And it's just barely there. So you're left just, waiting for ages and ages for anything to pop up that makes you feel like, oh, yeah, this is My Dying Bride music. Tom's described all these albums, very astutely, and no difference here. You could put this on just as, background music if you needed something for, a little bit of ambiance, and I guess it'd be okay. But, do not listen to this as a My Dying Bride album. A few folks like Devin in the chat have said, this is the only one I haven't heard. Keep it that way. You don't need to.
Yeah, Devin, you're not going to like it.
There are other things you can do with those 70 minutes of your life. You can watch a very short movie. You can wash your car. You can play an album that's good. You can masturbate several times looking at my OnlyFans page. Those 70 minutes of your life are worth something. They are not worth this album. So no. And I ranked it only 13 out of 14 because 34.7 exists.
Yeah.
That's kind of the sad thing.
Do you know how many times you can slam your dick in a door in 70 minutes?
Probably only
many times.
Exactly once. Once you scream and pass out, and you come to 75 minutes later.
Theoretically, but not in practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? I alluded to it earlier, but I actually listened to stuff in the 90s that was not dissimilar to this. So it wasn't. I was like, okay, they're going in this kind of direction. And
Yeah,
but I've only listened to it, in the background when I was doing something. To be honest.
Yes. He needs new lids. He needs the airtight lids for his jars, so the farts get to the. Never mind.
The stoppers are starting to wear out a little bit. Yeah.
Dude,
So
you're
he
not
has-
supposed
he
to have
has
to send it back.
Wait a second. He has a tip jar to fund his operation of farting in jars.
Yes, he
So
does.
this is a jar-to-jar operation.
This is a
Do I understand this correctly?
You fill the jar, you empty it out. You fill the jar, you empty it out. We're into recycling here.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Earth, we're saving the earth.
Yep, we're saving the earth and saving my farts.
Exactly.
for the children in the future.
Yep.
But not for children to smell, because that would be creepy and weird.
All
right.
right.
Yeah. So not. This is not a My Dying Bride album, really, and there's really not much to hear. It in a way feels like they did waste an opportunity to do something that could have been cool, and they just kind of foo-fooed around, and it didn't go anywhere. So not for me.
And Chris here has got a good point. I'd rather listen to Dead Can Dance if I want something. Exactly. And Dead Can Dance rule at this stuff. Rule. Yeah. So good.
But, Tom mentioned, others, Black Tape for a Blue Girl and, stuff. Some of those bands, can, do some interesting stuff. This is not where you want to be. No.
For me, I'll give you guys a little behind the scenes to Heavy Metallurgy, how we work. So last night, as I'm trying to finish out listening to the rest of the albums I hadn't heard, I text Alan at 10:01 p.m. Do I have to listen to this fucking Inventa pretentious sweater and red wine bullshit? Alan's reply, yes, because I did. Yes, it sucks. I said, let's rework some classics and make them shitty. And then he says, the tracks barely contain any parts from old songs. I said, great. So this is a let the singer do his thing. This is totally Twilight Orchestra by Blind Guardian. It's the same thing. Thanks, Glenn. He wants to see. We could start. We should start Alan's OnlyFans channel right here. It looks like, geez, this is great.
Man, I don't have to fart in nearly as many jars this weekend. Thanks, guys.
No Taco Bell for me tonight.
I can actually avoid eating. So much broccoli this Saturday.
Yeah.
Break out the potatoes, honey. We're the bills are paid.
That's right. But it's just I've got ideas. I want to do this and that. Oh, by the way, my girlfriend's an opera singer. Great. Sounds great. We have one more album to do on this contract. Let Aaron do his thing, him and his girlfriend. And Inventa, again, is it terrible? It's kind of like let's look back at the 34.788% complete. Doing things that they might respect and like from other artists, but doing it poorly. Just not as good. It's just not in their wheelhouse. It shouldn't have been a My Dying Bride record. I'm glad I didn't buy it blindly somewhere down the road. I would have been very disappointed. But yeah, number 14 for me. This is the worst of the worst. Yeah. Pointless record. Tom.
Okay. 2012, A Map of All Our Failures. And I do love this album cover, by the way, even though it's kind of a generic font. Very depressing. Mm-hmm. And it does fit this album.
It's actually a good cover for what they've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is I have it ranked as my number 9. To me, there's the sort of the great and then the very good, and this is albums that they have, and this is just kind of right underneath that. So I think it's comparable to those previous albums that we had talked about, but just done better. My favorite song is Hail Odysseus, and then probably A Map of All Our Failures is my second favorite. And the whole thing, it's solid, and it's very, to me, it's like the Sons of Darkness, Words of Light. To me, it's just a slightly better version of that, more inspired, basically. So that album is also, it does achieve the kind of dark and depressing thing, and this does too. But it does a little bit better. in my opinion. And then this like book edition has a bonus track that's actually really good called My Faults Are Your Reward, and it includes a documentary on the band that's worth checking out. And yeah, that's it.
Tom, just I think I may have misheard that based on our earlier conversation. Did you just say the bonus track was called My Farts Are Your Reward? Because if so, I'm using that as my new tagline on OnlyFans.
There you go. Hey,
the world is broken that a woman can make a bunch of money farting into a jar and sending it in the mail to somebody to sniff.
You're willing to reward, but as long as they pay for it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. As long as you don't give it away.
Hey,
rewards.
A wise man once said, if you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yeah.
Let's talk farting. Yeah, that's the name of his OnlyFans. Yeah.
Let's talk flatulence.
Yeah, keep banging your... Never mind. All right. Alan.
All right. Really good album here. I like this one quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's, and again, you could say, oh, yeah, they got back on track from Aventa, but as we've established, Aventa is not really, part of the main catalog, so that's not a fair comparison. But this one, it starts off, right away with, a very heavy song, Kneel Till Doomsday. It's got, great heavy kind of crawling riff to it. They're using some harsher vocals again, so it's not just, the clean vocals. Lots of good tracks here. A Tapestry Scorned is pretty good, although that's a really weird name for a song, even by My Dying Bride standards. I don't know how you scorn a tapestry. We'll have to read up on that sometime. But yeah, a lot of them. The thing I like about this album, two things that really sell it for me. It's very consistent in terms of quality, song to song to song. There's a lot of good ones on here. This one doesn't feel like they're just painting by numbers. It's like, no, they've actually got some solid ideas and put some good songs together here. The other thing I really like about it is, throughout the album, they've got a really good balance of material that is genuinely heavy, material that is quite pretty sounding, and material that also leans into a little bit more of the darker vibe. And I like that they kind of touch all those bases evenly. Whereas, some of the albums that we've talked about before that I wasn't as keen on, sometimes it felt like they just, they stuck to maybe one of those themes a little bit too much. Whereas this time it's balanced really well. Sorry, Tom, did you have something you want to say?
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. It's like that sort of dynamic thing that I really, really like about this band. That sort of brought back with this really well. Whereas you didn't have that as much with the previous, decade of albums, like you were saying,
Yeah. So yeah, I think this one is a really strong outing for them. I've got it ranked 6th, and I could see this one going higher. The maybe only thing it's holding it down from like 5th or 4th is that it's one that I only have a digital copy of. I bought it when it came out, but I just purchased the download, and as such, always when I'm looking at the CD shelf, I don't think, oh yeah, I should go play that one. I have to be actually flipping through the iPod or looking through the folders on the computer. But yeah, very, very good album. It's out of their last the last 10-15 years of their career, I'd say it's their best. So even at this relatively late stage, we're in 2012 at this point. The band's been going for almost a quarter of a century, and the fact that they can still make an album this strong speaks a lot about their quality as songwriters, musicians, and how good they are at working with this particular style, that they can still make it sound very interesting after all these albums.
All right. For me, it was funny. I pulled this up on YouTube Music, was listening to it, and I'm actually remembering hearing the songs. I'm like, God, I've heard this before. I'm humming along with the melodies, and sure enough, I own it. I'm like, wow, I haven't listened to this in a while. Didn't know I even owned it. But this is the start of a really good run. They got the Aventa out of the way, and it just seems like the 2000s era, the early 2000s era, they're kind of spinning their wheels. They're doing the right stuff. They're checking all the boxes for sure. But with this album, things really start to get a little more interesting. I think the music, there's like a jump up a bit. I don't know if there's a lineup change or what the deal is, but harmonies are still strong. The music is getting more and more interesting. Kneel to Doomsday is kind of a callback to the debut, really super heavy, a little bit of speed to it. The death vocals are back. There's brutality going on. Great. More. I said, wrote in the notes, more. The Poorest Waltz. Great melodies and vocal lines. Love that song.
That is a good one.
Absolutely great record. And it's a kicking off. It's a good run. They're leading up to some really great records. This is number 5 for me. Solid all the way through. Good cover. Yeah. Tom.
Okay, and I'll just mention this quickly. The Manuscript EP. It feels like kind of a random assortment of songs. But they have a song in here, A Pale Shroud of Longing, which I think is really, really good and worth checking out. And there's a song Var Good over whatever. It's like the closest thing they ever got to like melodic death metal. So it's a kind of a cool song. But just quickly mention that. And
Never
then
even heard of that thing.
Yeah, so Feel the Misery 2015. And and I think this is similar to the previous album. I think there's even more kind of like creepy heaviness on certain songs, especially my favorite song is probably To Shiver in Empty Halls. It's a really cool kind of creepy heavy song, and the Cold New Curse is really good. And then probably I Celebrate Your Skin is probably another one.
So stupid. I Celebrate Your Skin.
Yeah.
Great.
And my only issue with this is the songs, and the first song and then Feel the Misery. I don't really like a lot of the melodies that much in those two songs, and I find that it really drags the first half of the album but down. But then I think the other 6 songs, whatever it is, are really good and on par with the previous album. And there's some really cool, like I said, creepier, heavier stuff on here that is worth checking out if you're more into the earlier stuff. This one, another one that might appeal to you, and the previous album. So yeah, that's it. So I have it as my number 11, but it's really like I think like the opening track to me is I just don't like that much, and it's long and it drags it down. So, but it's still really worth checking out. So,
and look at that artwork. They actually have a color scheme going on. The artwork is good. Yeah, it's like they finally have an art budget, and it's looking good.
Yeah, but to me, this is just kind of cliche. So
it's cliche, but it doesn't look.
Yeah, it looks
out
nice,
of place.
Like,
you know,
like standard goth playbook kind of thing.
It totally is. Yeah.
So I this is not but we'll talk about the next cover. So yeah, that was it.
What's this, Jeff? Fatalities at tonight's Morbid Angel show in Belvedere, Illinois. What? Huh. That doesn't sound good.
Oh.
No.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marty. This continues. Pretty good albums coming out at this point in their career. This one does have a lot of songs on it I like, but to Tom's point, yeah, the album doesn't get off to a great start. The opener's not one of my favorites either. And starting an album with 3 back-to-back 9-minute songs, that's a hurdle you got to clear. You get to track 4 and it's already been almost 30 minutes, and you're putting in some work to get through this album. But there are a lot of good tracks later, and this one has a lot of heavy moments. Again, it has a lot of pretty moments on it too. So yeah, there's still variety among the tracks. Let's see. Yeah, Devin mentioned the title track in the chat, and that is a good one. Let's see. Looking through, you've got, again, the prettier ones like I Almost Loved You, with piano and violin parts included. Within a Sleeping Forest, I like. So as another good, consistent album, I've got it ranked a step lower than A Map of All Our Failures. So I've got it 7th. It could be a step lower than that. I do like the album overall. This was one I remember it took me a few listens to get into, just because I'd get through the first 3 songs. I'm just like, okay, I've used up my my Dying Bride budget for the day. I can't get through the rest of this album for now.
Right.
So yeah, not the way I would have arranged the track listing, but still a lot of good tracks. It's another solid album.
This is the first time I heard this album this week, and it kind of blew me away. I put it at number 3. I was pretty blown away by it. I really like the mix of the record. Everything sits really well. Aaron is more within the music, which is great. It really suits him well. Shiver in Empty Halls, brutal vocals, really good song. Probably going to get this one eventually. Again, I'm going to be digging through some used bins when I go to, different record stores looking for these things, but I liked it. It's third on my list. I think they're in a really good run right now. And, the quality in music, like I talk about their tapestry of tools they pull from, is very interesting. And, going from piano to keyboard to violin, they're just really good at what they do. And it's at this point in their career, it really shows. They're writing good songs at this point. Tom, you're up with there might be an EP before this.
Yeah, there's the Midnight Cabaret, which is not their strongest EP, but it's solid, especially what the hell's the name of it? Macabre Cabaret. I'm thinking of them. I keep calling it Midnight Cabaret. Yeah, so it's also EP they released in 2020, and it's solid. I especially like the title track on this. But we're going to their most recent album. This is also 2020, The Ghost of Orion, and this album cover is fantastic. I love
good.
it.
It's good.
Their best album cover to me.
Yep.
And this is one that I think has really grown on me since it came out. I thought it was quite good. And I would say, to me, this is Aaron's best vocal performance. I think that he's doubling a lot of his vocal lines and doing more melodic singing. And I think, or whatever they're doing in the studio, the doubling, I think it really helps him as a vocalist. Like, he just sounds more melodic and more like a real singer on this album. And then also and he does do the growls, but I do like how they're going back and forth, like at the same time and overlapping in certain points.
Yeah.
So the growls and the clean vocals work super well on this album, the kind of going back and forth. And I think this is, like, again, some of their best melodies. There's I do like and they do incorporate some of the sort of classical interludes at different points. And I think it works really well. And this album it just kind of has a little bit of a different sound and feel. There's just kind of more of a mid-tempo melodic, vocal melodicism to it that makes it a little different from their previous albums, while still sounding like My Dying Bride. And then let me look at the track list here. Yeah, I would say Tired of Tears and Your Broken Shore are my 2 favorite songs. And this whole thing flows really well too. And surprisingly, it's my number 5. This is something that the more I've listened to it since it came out, I would have thought it would have been my 8 or 9, but just listening to it since preparing for the show, like, it's really bumped up. So yeah, it's my number 5.
Right on. Yeah, Zach, I heard this too, Zach. His daughter is fighting cancer. Yeah. A lot of stuff to go through. Tough. Alan.
Yep. Yeah. Tom's description is spot on as always. I don't know what they're doing with his vocals either on this album, but the songwriting here is good. The performances are good. I don't like the production on this album, and it's not one I've played a lot. Maybe it would grow on me with more spins. It's one of those, got it, played it. It was kind of like something sounds off here, and kind of put it aside. And revisiting it in the past couple of weeks, it's just something in the production. It's got almost it almost sounds like too clear or sharp compared to the other albums. So it's almost costing the album some of its atmosphere, which is something you want with this kind of music. And yeah, I don't know what they're doing with his vocals. If they're doubling something in the studio, or they're adding some kind of weird little minor effect to touch it up. But it gets on my nerves. Whatever they're doing to it, it just feels like he doesn't sound quite right because of that. And I don't think it's his performance. I think it's whatever kind of touching up they've done with the production job. And as such, I haven't gotten past that yet. If I do, then yeah, songs and stuff on here seem like they're pretty solid, but I can't enjoy them because I'm stuck on the production. So currently I have this one ranked quite low, but it's just because of this one kind of big glaring problem. I ranked it as 11th. If I can ever get past the vocals, I have a feeling it will do and fare much, much better. But and maybe someone in the chat knows exactly what they've done with the vocal production here, but I can't shake it yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. So it's kind of a little bit of a letdown for me, because it's just one of those sounds that the longer I listen to the album, you can sometimes just mentally feel like it's getting on your nerves a little more and a little more and a little more, and it really starts to affect your enjoyment to the point that you just don't want to hear it. So I got to pass on this one until I can figure out this vocal thing.
Yeah, because I was kind of the opposite in terms of like I think initially I was thrown off by it, but to me it was like the special sauce that put the album over the top is however they did the vocals.
Yep. And it might be, hey, if I get through it 5 more times, it may be something that eventually either just stops bothering me, I get used to it, or that I start to realize, oh wait, no, it's actually starting to click now. But it just hasn't to date. But it hasn't gotten a ton of spins either, to be fair.
For me, I don't own this one either. I'm gonna look for it because, like Feel the Misery, it kind of blew me away. Feel the Misery was 3 for me. This one's number 4. I think they're just on a roll. They've really grown into their style. They're doing some really cool stuff musically. Aaron's sounding better. My only note for this was Your Broken Shore is fantastic. That was my main. I think I listened to that song twice. After it was done, I rewound it. Even Jurgen, he's hearing things that me and Tom didn't hear, I guess. I don't know.
You just hit people differently.
Like same piece of music can affect everybody differently. It's just the way it goes for sure. But.
And I will give this one another chance sometime, but it's just when I have to. It's not a top priority. It'll have to wait and circle back around. But I'll give it another chance because the band's catalog speaks volumes, I think, as we've covered tonight. Yeah. It's a good band with a pretty consistent catalog, so I'm not going to write it off yet.
And that's what I have to say. I only listened to it a couple times this week, but it's good stuff. I'll pick it up, and I'm not as fatigued. It's weird. I'm not as fatigued coming out of this dive like normal dives. I mean, granted, they don't have 100 records to have to go through, but I mean, there's a lot of dense stuff going on here. There's a lot of sorrow going on here. But I just find their music to be so interesting. It kind of makes them a special band, and it's been fun. It's been a fun dive, Tom. Thank you for picking this one because I don't know if myself, or Alan would have picked this band any other way, shape, or form. Do you think so?
I would have. It's actually a band I've been wanting to work back through their catalog for a long time, and just had never gotten around to. So yeah, I was really happy when you picked this one, Tom. So I was like, great. That's I've been looking for the excuse, the kick in the butt to go back and replay all this stuff. And yeah, it's been really fun to do so. So yeah, it was a perfect one to call.
Yeah, and going through it and just writing down my favorite tracks, I was honestly surprised. Like, there, other than that one album, 34 or whatever, 37, I don't remember. There's really not too many songs I don't like in the catalog, and I was honestly surprised. I guess my only critique is sometimes some of the songs just feel kind of generic, or when they feel like a little generic goth doom metal is to me is when I kind of tune out, because I'm so much like the kind of progressive or the dynamic, the dynamic elements, and when I'm not, or unique melodies.
Yeah,
I'm kind of not. I'm kind of feeling the melodies a little generic, then I'm kind of tuning out, and that's like my biggest complaint with some of the albums.
Yeah,
that's a testament to the guitar players. I mean, to play in this style for so long, they tried. I got to give them credit for trying things, because they did. They haven't just been the same band. They've tried stuff. Some of it's been varying levels of success, but at the end of the day, at the end of their career, they're still putting out records. I mean, their last two records were my number 3 and number 4. That's kind of cool. And obviously that ranking isn't the same for everybody, but they're still, you put on a My Dying Bride song and there's no way you can't tell that it's a My Dying Bride song. You could here, who's this band? You could tell instantly it's My Dying Bride. Instantly. And that's great. That's awesome.
And, well, first of all, I'm shocked it's 11:40 and we got through everything. I'm amazed. So the only other point that I was thinking of, this band was a big gateway, because I was, when I got this, I was, big metalhead, only into metal when I was, 14, 15. Yep. This was a gateway into a lot of stuff. So ironically, like, I probably got into Black Tape for a Blue Girl and, Ellen and stuff that's similar to what I was trying because of this band. So, it'd be like, I like the intro with no metal. What if I had an album that was all like that,
Yep.
and I would go find this, the band Autumn Tears or something.
Sure.
Or, get into Dead Can Dance. So this was a big gateway band to stuff that's non-metal.
Dead Can Dance is kind of, for me, the end boss of, it's like an intersection of like world music and gothic and post-punk. It's like they're the perfect non-metal band to me. That I got all their albums except for one. They're great. They're fantastic. They're a fantastic band. And I think that's another metal adjacent band, because it has that, there's so much emotion in it. I could see why metalheads would maybe like that stuff. I don't know, but Dead Can Dance are fantastic. Great. I
specifically got into Dead Can Dance because Cathedral and I think My Dying Bride and a few other bands said, "Oh yeah, we're influenced by this band."
Yeah.
And I had no interest in non-metal or hard rock, pretty much, or maybe hardcore at the time. And then I bought a Dead Can Dance live record, and I thought it was horrible. I didn't get it, and then they became one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was because of metal bands saying we're influenced by Dead Can Dance that I got into them.
Yeah, Project Records, 4AD, a lot of great labels that are swimming around in that style for sure. Oh no.
CJ is shopping.
The sad boy battle jacket.
Yeah, you can spill some wine on it too, and maybe cry on it a couple times, mop up some of your big crocodile tears.
And so his tears did flow on the jacket he had worn throughout the ages of time.
Stick to farting in jars, Alan. That's all I gotta say. All right, Tom.
You're just jealous because mine are better than yours.
Your farts, probably. Yes. Tom, everybody go check out Cine Arcadia Productions. Great channel, a lot of fun. He just had a contest. Did you announce the winner? Is that picking today? Or
no. I just announced that I'm having it.
Okay.
Yes, yesterday.
Yeah, folks can still enter.
It's going until the end of next month, the end of April.
Show everybody again what the win is. If you win this contest,
the new Mournful Congregation, Celestial Season, Solar Lovers,
rules,
Dark Castle, Surrender to All Life, Beyond Form, I think.
Good.
Solitude Eternus, Downfall.
Rules.
Great album.
And then we talked about this, Light at the End of the World.
Yep.
Top stuff. Absolutely. So yes.
Cine Arcadia Productions. Go. If you don't have a YouTube channel, start one up and enter Tom's contest. A lot of good content. Tom, it was always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Thank you for coming on with us. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
Love what you're doing. 100 episodes. I was honestly surprised because I don't pay attention to what number the episodes are. So it's like, wow.
We're plugging along.
That's a lot of Marty and Alan talking about farts.
Yeah, that's a lot of fart talk and whatever else. And then, of course, Wednesdays and now reviews. Lots of stuff going on. I guess we should maybe do some show notes. Next Friday, Morbid Angel Deep Dive with S. Craig Zoller.
Our 2-year anniversary show. Yep. We'll be going through the Morbid Angel catalog with Craig.
Yep. And Wednesday, the album club, we're talking about an Australian band called Werewolves. Yep. And I can't remember the name of it.
The Dead Are Screaming.
The Dead Are. See, Alan, like I said, he's the brains of this operation. I'm still just unplugging from My Dying Bride. So, oh yeah. Tomorrow night, we are playing at the Oigs Fest in Lansing, Michigan. I can't remember the name of the venue. What's the venue, TJ? I can't remember.
I can't help you with that one.
I can't.
But TJ can.
I think we forgot who the businessman is.
Yeah.
Marty can't remember the
I'm the talent. I'm the talent. I don't need to be smart. Just pretty.
Alan can pawn off his farts like it's nobody's business, and Marty can't remember the deets on the show.
You might say I can turn shit into gold.
Alan is the businessman. He keeps the checks coming in.
That's right. That's right. Yep, we're playing at the Avenue tomorrow night at the Oigs Fest. A bunch of bands. Throne is the headliner. They're a great band from Jackson, Michigan. They're on Redefining Darkness Records. Us, I can't remember any of the other bands. There's a bunch of Michigan bands playing. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. We'll be there. Come see to Lansing and have a beer with us. It'll be fun. But other than that, we will be here next week. We're going to be doing a contest soon. We need to do one to celebrate our 2-year anniversary. I don't know if we're going to have it all together and sorted out by next Friday, but there's going to be a giveaway. There'll be some cool test pressings or something from Bindrune. We'll see. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, go check out Cine Arcadia Productions. Go check out Let's Talk Metal. Monday, there's going to be a review by Simon from Explosive Action. I can't remember the band, but I'll be editing it Sunday after I get home from our weekend trip. So yesterday, Rick has a review put up. There's lots of stuff on the channel. Please go watch. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you for making 100 episodes a lot of fun. Anybody have anything to add before we jump?
Nope. It's been a great episode. Thanks to everybody for joining us. And Tom, we'll have you back again soon. You always are fun to have on, and you always pick great topics. So we'll talk again soon. Astriferous. Whatever. Yep. He's going to talk about it. It's going to be great.
Everybody have a good. The poetry is rubbed off on Simon.
Yeah.
His vocabulary has expanded.
It's exploded. Yep. Cheers, everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.